One text message, one devastating mistake, and the most dangerous man in the city is already at her door. Ava Carter's hands trembled as she stared at her phone. The ultrasound image, precious, private, meant only for her sister, had gone to the wrong contact. To him. Adrian Voss. The crime boss she'd sworn never to see again after one reckless night that should have meant nothing. His reply came in seconds. "That's my child." Before she could breathe, her phone rang. His voice, cold and certain. "Open the door." He was already outside. "If you're ready to see how one mistake can change everything, stay until the end and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches. Now, let's begin." The phone slipped from Ava's fingers, clattering against the scarred hardwood floor of her tiny studio apartment. For 3 endless seconds she couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at those 2 sentences glowing on the cracked screen. "That's my child. Open the door." This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Her apartment, barely 400 square feet of peeling paint and secondhand furniture in a building where the heat worked half the time, suddenly felt even smaller. The walls pressed in as her heart hammered against her ribs, each beat a painful reminder that this was real, this was now, and there was a man outside her door who shouldn't even know where she lived. Adrian Voss. The name alone made her stomach twist. 6 months ago, she'd met him at a charity gala where she'd been working coat check, one of 3 jobs she juggled to keep herself afloat. He'd been magnetic, dangerous in a way that should have sent her running. Dark eyes that seemed to see straight through every defense she'd ever built. A voice like smoke and expensive whiskey. Hands that had touched her like she was something precious instead of invisible. One night. That's all it was supposed to be. One impossible, reckless night with a man so far outside her world that she'd convinced herself it was a fantasy, something that would fade like a dream. Except fantasies didn't get you pregnant, and they definitely didn't show up at your door. The knock came again, firmer this time. Not aggressive, but certain. The kind of knock from someone who knew the door would open because he'd never encountered one that didn't. "Ava." His voice carried through the thin wood, perfectly controlled. "I know you're there. Open the door, or I'll open it myself." Her legs moved before her brain caught up, carrying her backward until her spine hit the kitchen counter. The ultrasound photo, the one she'd meant to send to her sister Maya with the caption, "Can you believe it? 8 weeks," had instead gone to the contact right above her in the alphabetically sorted list. Adrian Voss. She'd never deleted his number. Had told herself a dozen times she should, but something had always stopped her. Some stupid sentimental part of her that wanted to hold on to the memory of feeling wanted, even if just for one night. Now that sentimentality might destroy her. "I'm calling the police," she said, hating how her voice shook. "No, you're not. Not a threat. Just a statement of fact, delivered with the same certainty as someone commenting on the weather. Because you're smarter than that. And because we both know the police won't help you with what's coming." "What's coming?" The words hit her like ice water. Ava's hand found her phone, fingers trembling as she snatched it up. She should call someone. Maya, her manager at the diner. Anyone. But her thumb hovered over the screen, frozen by the terrible logic in his words. Adrian Voss wasn't just some wealthy businessman she'd had a fling with. She'd pieced that much together afterward, during sleepless nights of Googling his name and finding nothing but carefully curated press releases and photos from charity events. The absence of information was its own answer. Normal people left digital footprints. Adrian Voss left only shadows. 30 seconds, Ava. Then I'm coming in anyway, and you won't like how that conversation starts. Her feet carried her to the door. Survival instinct, maybe. Or the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting just to exist for so long that she didn't have the energy for one more battle. Her hand reached for the deadbolt, the only thing her landlord had agreed to install after the break-in 2 floors down last year. The metal was cold against her palm as she turned it. The door swung open, and there he was. Adrian Voss looked exactly as she remembered and nothing like him at all. The same sharp jawline, the same dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. The same expensive suit, charcoal gray tonight, probably worth more than 6 months of her rent. But his eyes, those dark eyes that had looked at her with heat and hunger that night, now held something else entirely. Possession. "Hello, Ava." 2 words, and they rewrote the air between them. He didn't ask to come in, simply stepped forward with the absolute confidence of someone who'd never been denied entry anywhere, and Ava found herself moving back automatically, her body remembering how to make space for him even as her mind screamed at her to slam the door. Too late now. Adrian closed the door behind him with a quiet click that sounded like a cell door locking. His gaze swept the apartment, taking in the thrift store couch, the tiny kitchenette with its ancient appliances, the bathroom door that didn't quite close all the way. She watched something flicker across his face. Not disgust. Something worse. Calculation. You've been living here. Not a question. An observation that somehow felt like an accusation. It's my apartment. The words came out sharper than she intended, defensive. Not all of us have... She gestured vaguely at his suit, his presence, the invisible aura of wealth and power that surrounded him like cologne. No. He turned to face her fully, and the intensity of his attention made her want to step back again. She held her ground. Barely. Not all of you have what I can provide, which is exactly why we're going to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Ava crossed her arms over her chest, very aware that she was still in her work clothes. Black pants stained with coffee from the morning shift, a white shirt that had seen better days. That photo, it wasn't meant for you. It was a mistake. The photo was a mistake. Adrian's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. The child isn't. You don't know? 8 weeks. He cut her off with surgical precision, which lines up perfectly with the night you spent in my bed. The night you left without a word while I was sleeping. His voice didn't change, didn't rise, but something dark flickered in his eyes. Did you think I wouldn't remember? That I'd forget you? Heat flooded her cheeks. It was one night. We used protection. This wasn't supposed to, but it did. He moved closer, and Ava's back hit the counter again, trapped. And now everything changes. Nothing changes. She lifted her chin, forcing herself to meet his gaze. This is my life. My choice. Your ex-boyfriend is Daniel Morrison. The non sequitur hit her like a slap. Ava blinked, her train of thought derailing completely. What does Danny have to do with anything? We broke up 4 months ago. Daniel Morrison works for Victor Constantine. Adrian watched her face carefully, and whatever he saw there made his jaw tighten. You don't know who that is. No. A cold weight was settling in her stomach. Should I? Victor Constantine runs the east side. Adrian's voice dropped lower, and somehow that made it more terrifying. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking. He spent the last 6 months trying to move into my territory. Your ex-boyfriend isn't just some low-level dealer, Ava. He's Victor's accountant. He knows where the money goes, how it's laundered, which politicians are on the payroll. The room tilted. Ava gripped the counter behind her, her knuckles going white. Danny works in IT support. He fixes computers for a tech company. That's what he told you. Not cruel, just factual. The truth is considerably different and considerably more dangerous. You're lying. But even as she said it, pieces were clicking into place. The weird hours. The cash he always seemed to have, despite complaining about his salary. The time she'd answered his phone and the person on the other end had gone silent before hanging up. I wish I was. Adrian pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward her. This was taken 3 days ago. The photo showed Danny, unmistakably Danny, with his shaggy blonde hair and the tattoo on his forearm, standing outside a warehouse, talking to 2 men in expensive suits. Even in the grainy image, Ava could see the briefcase in his hand, the nervous set of his shoulders. So, he's... She couldn't finish the sentence. A liability. Adrian pocketed his phone. And because you dated him, because your name is in his contacts and his apartment and his life, you became a liability too. Victor's people are thorough. They've already connected you to Daniel, and now... His gaze dropped to her stomach, still flat beneath her shirt. Now you're connected to me. No. The word came out as a whisper. No, this is insane. I'm nobody. I work 3 jobs to afford this place. I'm not involved in whatever world you and Danny are part of. You are now. Adrian's voice held something that might have been regret. The moment that ultrasound hit my phone, the moment I confirmed that child is mine, you became the most valuable piece on the board. Victor will use you to get to me. Your ex will use you as a bargaining chip to save himself. And every enemy I've made in the last 15 years, he paused, they'll see you as the perfect weakness. Ava's knees wanted to buckle. She locked them, forcing herself to stay upright. Then I'll run. I'll disappear. You'll die. Blunt, brutal, true. They're better at finding people than you are at hiding. I've already had to intercept 2 attempts to grab you in the last 72 hours. The world stopped spinning. What? The man who followed you home from the diner Tuesday night. The car that's been parked across the street with 3 men inside since this morning. Did you think those were coincidences? Adrian moved closer still until she could smell his cologne, cedar, and something darker. I've had a protection detail on you since I found out about Daniel's involvement with Victor. That's how I knew about the pregnancy before you sent that photo. My people intercept all surveillance on you. You've been watching me? The violation of it hit her like a physical blow. I've been keeping you alive. No apology in his tone. And now we're out of time. Victor knows about the baby, which means he knows you're mine, which means he'll move tonight. Stop saying that. Ava shoved at his chest, and it was like pushing against a wall. I'm not yours. This baby, it's not. We're not. You are. His hands came up to grip her shoulders, firm but not painful, inescapable. Whether you accept it or not, Ava, you became mine the night you let me inside you, and I protect what's mine. By stalking me, by deciding my life without asking, by making sure you have a life to live. His thumbs moved in small circles against her shoulders, a gesture so at odds with the intensity of his words that it sent her head spinning. I've already handled your apartment. Lease is paid off for the year, your jobs, all 3 of them. You're taking a leave of absence. Medical reasons. I've arranged a doctor, a private practice that specializes in high-risk pregnancies. High risk? Fear spiked through her anger. What do you mean, high risk? You're under constant threat from multiple hostile parties. That makes every moment of this pregnancy high risk. Adrian's voice softened fractionally. I'm not trying to scare you, Ava. I'm trying to save you, but I can't do that if you fight me every step of the way. You can't just reorganize my entire life. But even as she said it, the fight was draining out of her. Everything he'd said, the surveillance, the danger, Danny's involvement in something terrible, it all had the weight of truth. I don't even know you. You know enough. His hand slid from her shoulders to her arms, steadying her. You know I wanted you enough to remember everything about that night. You know I'm powerful enough to protect you from what's coming. And you know, his gaze dropped to her stomach again. You know that child is mine, and I don't abandon what belongs to me. Tears burned behind Ava's eyes. She blinked them back furiously. What are you asking me to do? Pack a bag. Adrian released her, stepping back to give her space that somehow felt worse than his proximity. Enough for a few days. Everything else you need, I'll provide. And go where? With me. He said it like it was obvious, like there was no other possible option. My estate is secure. 24-hour protection, medical staff on call, everything you and the baby need. Your estate. The words tasted foreign in her mouth. You're asking me to move in with you, a man I spent one night with 6 months ago. I'm telling you that staying here means dying, possibly within the next few hours. Adrian checked his watch, something expensive and Swiss that probably cost more than her car. We've already been here too long. My security team is outside, but Victor's people are patient. They'll wait for the right moment. This is insane. Ava pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to think through the panic. You show up at my door, tell me my ex is a criminal, that I'm being hunted by some crime lord, and expect me to just, what, trust you? No. Adrian's voice was closer now. She felt his fingers gently pull her hands away from her face, holding them in his much larger ones. I expect you to trust your instincts. The same instincts that brought you to my bed 6 months ago. The same instincts that made you keep my number even though you told yourself you shouldn't. The same instincts that are telling you right now that I'm your best chance at survival. Ava opened her eyes, meeting his dark gaze. In the terrible lighting of her apartment, he should have looked less imposing. Instead, he looked exactly like what he was, dangerous, powerful, and absolutely certain of his control over the situation. And damn her, but he was right. Every survival instinct she had was screaming at her to go with him, to accept the protection he was offering, to stop fighting a battle she'd already lost the moment she'd sent that ultrasound to his phone. One condition. Her voice was steadier than she felt. I want to talk to Maya, my sister. I need to tell her I'm okay. After we're secure. Adrian released her hands. Right now, any communication is a liability. Victor's people monitor everything. The moment you contact your sister, they'll use her to track you. Then how do I know she'll be safe? Because I've already put protection on her too. Adrian moved toward her tiny bedroom, clearly expecting her to follow. Her apartment is being watched. Her workplace, her regular routes, all covered. Anyone who matters to you is already under my protection, Ava. I told you, I'm thorough. She followed him because what else was she going to do? In her bedroom, barely big enough for her double bed and a dresser, Adrian was already pulling her battered suitcase from the closet, laying it open on the bed. Pack light, he said, as if this was normal, as if people packed emergency bags while being hunted by criminals every day. Practical clothing, any medications you need, sentimental items if they're small. Ava moved mechanically, pulling clothes from her dresser. Jeans, t-shirts, her one nice sweater, underwear. Her hands shook as she packed, reality setting in with each item she folded. This was happening. She was leaving her apartment, her life, everything familiar, with a man she barely knew because the alternative was death. The photo. Adrian's voice made her turn. He was holding the framed picture from her nightstand, her and Maya at the beach last summer, both of them laughing at something long forgotten. Your sister? Yes? Ava took it from him, wrapping it carefully in a shirt before tucking it into the suitcase. She's all I have. Not anymore. Adrian's hand covered hers briefly. You have me now, and I take care of what's mine. There was that word again. Mine. Possessive and absolute. It should have terrified her. Instead, it sent an unwelcome heat through her chest, a feeling that was dangerous in its own way. I need 5 minutes. Ava zipped the suitcase, then moved toward the bathroom. I need to use the bathroom. Wash my face. 5 minutes. Adrian nodded, and she escaped into the tiny bathroom, locking the door with shaking hands. In the mirror above the sink, her reflection looked like a stranger, pale, wide-eyed, terrified. She turned on the tap, splashing cold water on her face, trying to think. This was insane. Walking out of her apartment with Adrian Voss was possibly the stupidest thing she could do, but staying might get her killed, might get her baby killed. Her hand moved to her stomach, pressing against the flat surface where in a few months there would be visible proof of that one impossible night. A baby. Adrian's baby. The thought still didn't feel real. A sharp crack echoed through the apartment. Ava's heart stopped. She yanked open the bathroom door just as Adrian appeared in the bedroom doorway. His expression transformed from controlled to lethal in an instant. Down! He moved like lightning, grabbing her and pulling her to the floor as another crack split the air, the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Oh God! Oh God! Ava couldn't breathe, couldn't think, pressed against the floor with Adrian's body covering hers. Stay down. His voice was deadly calm, one hand holding her in place while the other pulled something from inside his jacket. A gun, sleek and black. They're early. Who's early? But she knew. Victor's people. The enemies Adrian had warned her about. More gunfire, closer now. The window in her living room shattered with a spectacular crash. Adrian was already moving, keeping low as he positioned himself between Ava and the door. How many? He spoke into a device in his ear that she hadn't noticed before. A pause. Handle it. I'm getting her out the back. Another pause, his jaw tightening. Then make a hole. Adrian. Her voice broke on his name. We're going to move fast. He was back at her side, pulling her to her feet with one hand while the other kept the gun trained on the doorway. Stay behind me, stay low, and whatever happens, don't let go of my hand. I can't. You can. His fingers laced through hers, grip firm and unbreakable. You will. Because that baby you're carrying is mine, and I don't lose what belongs to me. Understand? Ava nodded, too terrified to speak. Good girl. Adrian moved toward the bedroom window, the one that faced the fire escape. On 3. 1. The door to her apartment exploded inward. Go! Adrian yanked her toward the window, shattering the glass with his gun before pushing her through. The cold night air hit her like a slap as she stumbled onto the metal fire escape, Adrian right behind her. Below, men in dark suits were already climbing up. Above, she could hear shouting, more gunfire. Up! Adrian didn't give her a choice, practically lifting her toward the ladder to the roof. Move! Ava climbed, her hands slipping on the cold metal, her breath coming in terrified gasps. Behind her, she heard Adrian fire his weapon, once, twice, 3 times. Men screamed. Then they were on the roof, the city spreading out around them in a carpet of lights that seemed impossibly calm compared to the violence erupting around them. This way. Adrian pulled her across the roof toward the building next door. There was a gap between them, maybe 3 feet of empty air and 5 stories of nothing. I can't jump that. You can. Adrian was already lifting her. I've got you. Trust me. And then she was flying, his hands propelling her across the gap. For one terrible moment, there was nothing but air beneath her, and then she was landing hard on the opposite roof, her knees hitting concrete. Adrian landed beside her a second later, already pulling her up again. Keep moving! They ran across 3 more roofs, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter behind them. Finally, Adrian pulled her to a stop near a rooftop access door. He spoke into his earpiece again, rapid-fire instructions she couldn't quite catch. 2 minutes. He turned to her, his hands framing her face, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? I don't think so. Ava was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Good. His thumbs brushed across her cheeks, wiping away tears she hadn't realized she was crying. You did well. Better than well. They tried to kill us. The words came out numb, shocked. They tried to take you, Adrian corrected. The kill order was for me. You're too valuable alive. His expression darkened. Which is why we're never letting them get close again. A helicopter appeared over the building, sleek and black, its arrival somehow both impossible and perfectly fitting for the insanity of the last 10 minutes. It descended onto the roof, wind from the rotors whipping Ava's hair around her face. Adrian pulled her toward it, shielding her body with his as they crossed the roof. The side door opened, revealing a man in tactical gear who helped pull Ava inside. Adrian climbed in after her, and before she could process what was happening, they were lifting off, the city dropping away beneath them. Ava collapsed into one of the leather seats, her entire body trembling. Adrian sat beside her, his hand finding hers again, holding tight. Where are we going? She had to shout over the noise of the rotors. Home. Adrian's voice was close to her ear. Where you'll be safe. Where no one can touch you. Ava closed her eyes, letting her head fall back against the seat. Home. As if anywhere could feel like home after this. As if her entire life hadn't just been destroyed in the span of 15 minutes. But Adrian's hand was warm in hers, steady and unshakable. And despite everything, despite the terror and the insanity and the absolute destruction of everything she'd known, she held on. Because he was right. She was his now. And she didn't have anywhere else to go. The helicopter cut through the night sky, carrying her away from the life she'd known and towards something else entirely. Something that felt like a cage made of gold and promises she wasn't sure she could trust. But as Adrian's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand and the adrenaline slowly drained from her system, Ava realized something terrifying. Part of her didn't want to. The helicopter banked left, and Ava's stomach dropped with it. She kept her eyes squeezed shut, partly from exhaustion, partly because every time she looked out the window at the shrinking city below, her mind replayed the sound of shattering glass and gunfire. Open your eyes. Adrian's voice cut through the rotor noise closer than she expected. You're safe now. Safe. The word felt foreign. Ava forced her eyes open anyway, finding Adrian watching her with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. In the dim cabin lighting, his features were all sharp angles and shadows, beautiful in a dangerous way that made her heart skip. How long? She asked. 20 minutes. He understood without elaboration. His thumb was still tracing those circles on her hand, a gesture so at odds with the violence they'd just escaped that it made her dizzy. The estate is north of the city, completely secure. 20 minutes to her new life. Ava looked past him, out the window where the city lights were giving way to darker patches. Parks, maybe, or the river. Everything looked different from up here, smaller and less real. "My suitcase," she said suddenly. "I left it. Already retrieved." Adrian gestured toward the back of the cabin where she spotted her battered suitcase strapped down alongside several hard cases that probably contained weapons. "My team secured the apartment after we left. Everything you packed is here." Of course it was. Because Adrian Voss thought of everything, controlled everything, anticipated her needs before she even voiced them. It should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like the walls of that gilded cage closing in. "What about my neighbors?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "Mrs. Chen on the third floor, she's 83, and the family with the twin boys across the hall evacuated before the shooting started." Adrian's expression softened fractionally. "No civilian casualties. My people had the building cleared within 3 minutes of identifying the threat." Relief flooded through her, so intense it left her lightheaded. "Thank you. Don't thank me for cleaning up a mess that exists because of me." His jaw tightened, and she saw something flash across his face. Guilt, maybe, or anger turned inward. "You were a target because of what I am, because of what we created together." His hand moved to her stomach, palm flattening against the fabric of her shirt. The gesture was possessive and protective in equal measure, and Ava's breath caught at the intimacy of it. "You can't know that for certain," she said, "about the baby. Not yet." "I know." No hesitation, no doubt. The timeline fits. And more than that, his eyes met hers, dark and certain. "I know because I remember everything about that night. How you tasted. How you felt. The sounds you made when I was inside you." His voice dropped lower, rough with memory. "I didn't use protection from some company that cuts corners, Ava. I used the best money can buy. And it failed anyway because some things are meant to happen." Heat flooded her face, spreading down her neck. "That's not... You can't just say things like that." "Why not?" His hand remained on her stomach, warm through the thin fabric. "It's the truth. I wanted you that night more than I've wanted anything in years. And when you left without a word, I told myself it was better that way, that someone like you didn't belong in my world." His thumb moved in a slow circle, mirroring the gesture he'd been making on her hand. "I was wrong. Adrian, you belong exactly where I can protect you." He leaned closer, and she could smell his cologne mixed with cordite and adrenaline. "Where I can make sure nothing touches you or our child. Where you're mine in every way that matters." The helicopter began to descend, and Ava grabbed the armrest with her free hand, grateful for the interruption. This conversation was moving into territory she wasn't ready to navigate, not with her entire world turned upside down and her heart still racing from their escape. Through the window, she could see lights approaching, not city lights, but something more contained and deliberate. The estate, she realized. Adrian's home. Her new home, whether she wanted it or not. The helicopter touched down with barely a bump, testament to the pilot's skill. The rotors began to slow, and Adrian was already unbuckling, moving with the fluid efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "Wait here," he said, and was out the door before she could respond. Through the window, Ava watched him speak to several men in dark suits. More security, she assumed. They moved with the same predatory grace as Adrian, eyes constantly scanning the perimeter. One of them handed Adrian what looked like a tablet, and he scrolled through it rapidly, his expression darkening with whatever he was reading. Then his gaze flicked to the helicopter, to her, and his expression smoothed into something more controlled. He handed the tablet back and returned to the cabin, extending his hand. "Come, let me show you your new home." Ava took his hand because refusing seemed pointless. The moment her feet touched the ground, she understood why they called it an estate, and not just a house. The helipad sat atop a manicured lawn that seemed to stretch forever in every direction, illuminated by discreet ground lighting that created an almost ethereal glow. Beyond the lawn, she could make out the dark shapes of trees, a private forest maybe, creating a natural barrier between this place and the rest of the world. And the house itself, Ava had to tilt her head back to take it all in. It wasn't a house. It was a mansion, all stone and glass and elegant lines that spoke of old money and absolute power. Lights glowed in some of the windows, at least 20 that she could see from here, which meant there were probably twice that many she couldn't. How many people live here? The question came out strangled. Just me. Adrian's hand settled on the small of her back, guiding her toward the entrance. And the staff, though most of them have quarters in the West Wing and keep separate hours. Now it will be you as well. Just him. All this space for one man. Ava's entire apartment could have fit in the foyer they were walking toward, with room to spare. The front door opened before they reached it, revealing a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair pulled into an elegant bun and sharp eyes that cataloged Ava in about 3 seconds. She wore a simple black dress and pearls, and somehow managed to look both welcoming and intimidating. "Sir?" She inclined her head to Adrian. "Your guest rooms are prepared as requested." "Thank you, Margaret." Adrian's hand remained on Ava's back. "This is Ava Carter. She'll be staying with us indefinitely. Please make sure she has everything she needs." Margaret's gaze shifted to Ava, and something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. "Of course. Welcome to the estate, Miss Carter." "Thank you," Ava managed, feeling wildly out of place in her coffee-stained work clothes and scuffed sneakers. Margaret stepped aside, and they entered the foyer. Ava had expected opulence, but this was something else entirely. The floor was marble, real marble, not the cheap tile that tried to pass for it in her building. A chandelier that probably cost more than she made in a year hung from the 2-story ceiling. Original artwork lined the walls, pieces she vaguely recognized from museums or art history classes she'd taken in college before dropping out to work full-time. "Your rooms are on the 2nd floor," Adrian said, leading her toward a sweeping staircase. "East wing, private balcony, sitting room, bedroom, and bathroom. If you need anything else, tell Margaret and she'll arrange it." "Rooms?" Ava stopped at the base of the stairs. "Plural?" "A suite." Adrian turned to face her, and in the warm lighting of the foyer, she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, carefully masked but present. "I won't presume to share your bed, Ava. Not until you invite me." The implication hung between them. Until, not unless. As if it was inevitable, just a matter of time. "I don't... This is too much." Ava gestured vaguely at the surroundings. "All of this, I can't... You can, and you will." Adrian's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Because the alternative is putting you in a safe house with rotating guards and no privacy. And I think we both know that would be a prison in every sense of the word. At least here you have space. Freedom within the boundaries of safety. A gilded cage, just like she'd thought. Come." He started up the stairs, clearly expecting her to follow. "You need rest. Tomorrow we'll discuss the details." Ava climbed the stairs after him, her hand trailing along the polished banister. The 2nd floor opened into a hallway that seemed to stretch forever in both directions, doors lining both sides. Adrian turned right toward the east wing and stopped at the 3rd door. "Here." He opened it, and Ava stepped into a room that was bigger than her entire apartment. The suite was decorated in soft creams and golds, elegant without being ostentatious. A plush sofa and armchairs created a sitting area near the balcony doors. An archway led to what she assumed was the bedroom. "The bathroom is through there." Adrian pointed to another door. "Shower, separate tub, heated floors. The closet is fully stocked with basics in your size. Margaret is very efficient. Tomorrow, we'll arrange for anything else you need." How did she know my size? The question was absurd given everything else, but Ava's brain latched onto it anyway. "I know your size." Adrian's voice dropped into that rough register that sent heat pooling low in her belly. "I remember every inch of you, Ava. How could I forget?" She turned away before he could see the effect his words had on her, moving toward the balcony doors. Through the glass, she could see the grounds spread out below, the private forest creating a dark border at the edge of the property. "It's beautiful," she admitted quietly. "It's safe." Adrian moved closer, his reflection appearing in the glass beside hers. "That's all that matters right now. You're safe here, protected. No one can reach you without going through an entire security team and me." "And what happens tomorrow?" Ava watched their reflections, not quite ready to turn and face him. "What's the plan? Do I just live here? Indefinitely? What about my life, my job, Your life is here now." He cut her off gently. "Your job is carrying my child safely. Everything else's details we'll handle as they come. You can't just decide that. I already have. His hand came up to her shoulder, turning her to face him. I know this isn't what you wanted. I know I'm not what you wanted. But we're here now, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Both of you. Ava wanted to argue, to fight, to reclaim some sense of control over her life. But exhaustion was creeping in, making her limbs heavy and her thoughts fuzzy. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard, and suddenly all she wanted was to collapse into that impossibly comfortable-looking bed and sleep for a week. Adrian must have seen it in her face. His expression softened, and he guided her toward the bedroom archway. Sleep. We'll talk more tomorrow. The bedroom was just as luxurious as the sitting room, a king-sized bed with what looked like Egyptian cotton sheets, more artwork on the walls, another door that probably led to the closet he'd mentioned. Her suitcase was already there, sitting at the foot of the bed. How? She turned, but Adrian was already at the door. My team is efficient. He paused in the doorway, his hand on the frame. There's a panic button on the nightstand. Press it if you need anything, and security will be here in 30 seconds. Press it twice if you need me specifically. Where will you be? Down the hall, close enough to reach you if you need me, far enough to give you space. His dark eyes held hers for a long moment. Sleep well, Ava. Tomorrow, things will look clearer. Then he was gone, closing the door softly behind him. Ava stood in the center of the enormous bedroom, suddenly feeling more alone than she had in her tiny studio apartment. At least there, the walls had been close enough to touch, familiar enough to be comforting. Here, everything was too big, too perfect, too much. She moved on autopilot, finding her suitcase and pulling out her toiletries and a clean shirt to sleep in. The bathroom was exactly as luxurious as Adrian had promised, all marble and chrome and a bathtub that could probably fit 3 people. The shower alone was bigger than her old bathroom. Ava showered quickly, washing away the smell of gunpowder and fear. The water pressure was perfect, the temperature exactly right, and she hated that even this, something as simple as a shower, reminded her how different this world was from hers. By the time she dried off and pulled on her old college t-shirt, her eyes were drooping. The bed called to her, and she didn't have the energy to resist. The sheets were just as soft as they looked, cool against her skin, and the mattress seemed to cradle her perfectly. She should have been too wired to sleep. Should have been lying awake, processing everything that had happened, planning her next move. Instead, she was asleep within minutes, too exhausted to fight anymore. She woke to sunlight streaming through the balcony doors and the smell of coffee. For a moment, Ava couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The gunfire, the helicopter, Adrian's hands on her as they ran across rooftops, the estate, the suite, the impossible reality of her new life. She sat up slowly, her muscles protesting. There was a breakfast tray on the nightstand that definitely hadn't been there when she fell asleep. Coffee, fresh fruit, pastries, and a small vase with a single rose. A note lay beside the tray, written in strong, angular handwriting. Good morning. Margaret will bring you anything else you need. I'll see you at noon. Ava picked up the coffee, inhaling the rich aroma. It was perfect, exactly how she took it, with just a splash of cream and 1 sugar. Which meant either Adrian remembered that detail from 6 months ago, or someone had done their homework on her preferences. She wasn't sure which possibility unsettled her more. The coffee was still hot, which meant whoever had brought the tray had been in her room recently, while she was sleeping. The thought should have bothered her more than it did, but she was too busy enjoying the first decent cup of coffee she'd had in weeks to care. After finishing the fruit and one of the pastries, some kind of almond croissant that was probably the best thing she'd ever tasted, Ava explored the closet. Adrian hadn't been kidding. It was fully stocked with clothes in her size, ranging from casual jeans and t-shirts to elegant dresses she'd never have occasion to wear. There were shoes, too, and underwear that looked expensive enough to make her blush. She pulled on jeans and a simple sweater, both fitting perfectly, and ventured out into the sitting room. The balcony doors beckoned, and she stepped outside into crisp morning air. The view was breathtaking. The estate stretched out below her, all manicured lawns and gardens that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. Beyond that, the forest created a natural border, and in the distance, she could just barely make out the city skyline. It looked impossibly far away, like a different world entirely. Miss Carter, Margaret's voice made her turn. The older woman stood in the doorway, looking as composed as she had the night before. I hope you slept well. I did. Thank you. Ava gestured to the balcony. It's beautiful here. Mr. Voss takes great pride in the grounds. Margaret moved into the room with the efficiency of someone who'd been managing households for decades. He asked me to inform you that Dr. Reeves will arrive at 10 for your examination. My what? Your prenatal examination. Margaret's expression was kind but firm. Mr. Voss has arranged for complete medical care. Dr. Reeves is one of the best in her field. Of course he had, because Adrian Voss didn't do anything halfway. I already have a doctor, Ava said, knowing it was pointless even as the words left her mouth. I'm sure you did. However, Dr. Reeves specializes in high-risk pregnancies and has security clearance to work within the estate. Margaret smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her dress. I believe Mr. Voss explained that your situation requires certain precautions. High risk. That word again, reminding her that this wasn't a normal pregnancy, that she wasn't a normal expectant mother. She was cargo, valuable, and protected. Fine. Ava wrapped her arms around herself. Can I go outside? Walk around the grounds? Of course, though I should mention that Mr. Voss requests you stay within sight of the house for now. Security purposes. Margaret's tone suggested this was not a request, regardless of the phrasing. The gardens are lovely this time of morning. I'll have someone show you the paths. An hour later, Ava found herself walking through gardens that belonged in a magazine spread. Stone paths wound between flower beds that were still blooming despite the season, and small fountains provided a soothing background noise. Two men in dark suits followed at a discreet distance. Her security detail, she assumed. It should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt like walking through a beautiful prison yard. They won't hurt you, you know. Ava spun, her heart leaping into her throat. Adrian stood on the path behind her, dressed more casually than she'd seen him. Dark jeans and a black sweater that somehow made him look even more dangerous. His hair was slightly mussed, as if he'd been running his hands through it. You scared me, she accused. My apologies. He didn't sound particularly sorry. I wanted to check on you before your appointment. You mean the appointment you arranged without asking me? Ava resumed walking, and Adrian fell into step beside her. The security guards melted back, giving them space. Yes, that one. No apology in his tone. Dr. Reeves is excellent. She'll do a full examination, make sure everything is progressing normally. And if I refuse, then I'll worry. Adrian's hand touched her elbow, gentle but insistent, stopping her on the path. And when I worry about the safety of my child, I make decisions that you won't like. So please, Ava, don't refuse. She turned to face him fully, searching his expression for any hint of manipulation or control. But all she saw was genuine concern, maybe even fear, carefully controlled beneath his usual composure. This is all happening so fast, she said quietly. Yesterday I was working 3 jobs and living in a studio. Today, I'm in a mansion being guarded like the crown jewels. I know. His hand moved from her elbow to her cheek, cupping her face with a gentleness that made her chest ache. I know this isn't what you wanted, but it's what you have, what we have, and I'm asking you to trust me enough to let me protect you. I don't know you well enough to trust you. Then get to know me. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. We have time, all the time we need. Do we? Ava challenged. Because last night you told me I was being hunted by criminals. That doesn't sound like we have time for leisurely getting to know you conversations. The threat is contained for now. Adrian's jaw tightened. Victor's people failed last night. He'll regroup before trying again. That gives us a window. A window for what? To prepare. To plan. His hand dropped from her face, and she immediately missed the warmth. And to make decisions about our future. What kind of decisions? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his gaze moving past her to the gardens and the forest beyond. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. My mother is coming to visit next week. Ava blinked. Of all the things she'd expected him to say, that wasn't one of them. Your mother. Elena Voss. The way he said the name suggested complicated history. She's traditional and she has strong opinions about family and legacy. And you told her about me. It wasn't a question. I told her I'd gotten someone pregnant. Adrian's expression was unreadable. She insisted on meeting you. To see if I'm suitable? Bitterness crept into Ava's voice. To make sure the criminal's baby mama isn't too embarrassing? To make sure you're protected. Adrian's eyes snapped back to hers, sharp and intense. My mother is many things, Ava, but she values family above everything. Once she knows you're carrying her grandchild, she'll move heaven and earth to keep you safe. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be comforting. It's meant to be true. He started walking again, and Ava followed, drawn along by the force of his certainty. Elena Voss doesn't do anything halfway. When she arrives, she'll likely suggest certain arrangements. What kind of arrangements? Adrian stopped at a fountain, trailing his fingers through the water. Marriage. The word hung between them like a bomb. Absolutely not. Ava's response was immediate and emphatic. I'm not marrying someone I barely know because I accidentally got pregnant. Not because you got pregnant. Adrian turned to face her, and there was something dangerous in his expression. Because you and our child are targets. Because marriage would give you legal protections, access to resources, and a legitimate claim to the Voss family security apparatus. And what would it give you, Ava demanded. Besides a convenient way to control me? Peace of mind. The answer was so simple, so honest, that it stole her breath. Knowing that no one can question your place here. That you have every legal right to my protection, my resources, my name. I don't want your name. You might not have a choice. Adrian's voice hardened. My mother will insist, and when Elena Voss insists on something, it tends to happen. Then I'll refuse her too. Ava crossed her arms. I'm not some pawn to be married off for security reasons. I'll stay here. I'll accept your protection, but I won't marry you just because it's convenient. Something flickered across Adrian's face. Respect, maybe, or frustration. Possibly both. We'll see, was all he said. The doctor's appointment was thorough and professional, conducted in a private medical suite Ava hadn't known existed in the mansion. Dr. Reeves was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and competent hands, and she treated Ava like a person rather than a problem to be managed. The ultrasound confirmed what Ava already knew. 8 weeks pregnant, healthy, everything progressing normally. But seeing the tiny blob on the screen, hearing the rapid flutter of the heartbeat, made it suddenly, terrifyingly real. Adrian stood beside the exam table the entire time, his hand gripping hers, his eyes fixed on the screen with an intensity that made her dizzy. Strong heartbeat, Dr. Reeves said, smiling. Everything looks perfect. I'll want to see you weekly, given the circumstances, but there's no cause for concern right now. After the doctor left, Ava sat on the exam table in the silent room, still processing. Adrian remained beside her, unusually quiet. That's our child, he finally said, his voice rough. That heartbeat, that's ours. I know. Ava's free hand moved to her stomach. It's terrifying. Yes. Adrian's thumb traced circles on her hand, that gesture she was starting to recognize as his tell when he was processing something. And extraordinary. She looked at him then, really looked at him, saw past the crime boss exterior to the man beneath, the one who'd held her hand through the ultrasound like his life depended on it, who'd arranged for the best doctor money could buy, who looked at that grainy image on the screen like it was the most important thing in the world. Adrian, she started, not sure what she wanted to say. The door burst open. A woman swept in, there was no other word for it, radiating power and authority in a designer suit and heels that could probably be classified as weapons. She was in her 60s, with dark hair swept into an elegant chignon and eyes exactly the same shade as Adrian's. She stopped when she saw Ava on the exam table, her gaze moving from Ava to Adrian and back again. So, Elena Voss said, her accent carrying just a hint of something European, this is the girl. Adrian's hand tightened on Ava's. Mother, you're early. I caught an earlier flight. Elena's gaze catalogued every detail of Ava's appearance with surgical precision. I wanted to meet the woman carrying my grandchild. Ava felt like a specimen under a microscope. She straightened her spine, meeting Elena's gaze directly. She might be out of her depth here, might be terrified and lost, but she wouldn't be intimidated. "Mrs. Voss," she said evenly. "Ms. Carter." Elena moved closer, and Ava caught the scent of expensive perfume. "I understand you've had quite an eventful 24 hours. That's one way to put it." A smile ghosted across Elena's lips, there and gone so fast Ava almost missed it. "My son tends to complicate things, but he also tends to protect what's his. You should remember that." "Mother," Adrian's voice held a warning. "Hush, Adrian." Elena waved him off with the casual authority of someone who'd been issuing orders all her life. "I'm talking to Ava, woman to woman." She turned back to Ava, her expression sharp. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone weaker, someone Adrian could control easily." Elena tilted her head. "But you have spine, I see it in your eyes. That's good. You'll need it in this family." "I'm not part of this family?" "Not yet." Elena's smile was knowing. "But you will be. The question is whether you'll fight it every step of the way, or whether you'll be smart enough to see the advantages." "The advantages of being forced into marriage?" Ava couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. "The advantages of being a Voss." Elena's voice turned steely. "Protection, resources, power, a legacy for your child. These are not small things, Ava, and in exchange all you have to do is marry a man who's clearly already invested in you." "Mother, that's enough." Adrian stepped between them, his posture protective. "Ava just had her first prenatal appointment. She doesn't need you pressuring her." "I'm not pressuring. I'm explaining reality." Elena's gaze shifted to her son, and something softer entered her expression. "But fine. I'll save the rest of this conversation for later, after Ava has had time to settle in." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Welcome to the family, Ava, whether you're ready for it or not." Then she was gone, leaving silence in her wake. Ava let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "She's terrifying." "Yes." Adrian helped her down from the exam table. "But she's also right about one thing." "What's that?" "You do have spine." His hand settled on her waist, steadying her. "And you'll need it, because my mother never takes no for an answer." "Then she's going to learn." Ava met his gaze. "Because neither do I." Adrian's expression shifted into something that might have been admiration, and his hands tightened fractionally on her waist before releasing her. "Come. You should eat something more substantial than pastries." The dining room was exactly what Ava expected from a mansion like this. A table that could seat 20 crystal chandeliers, more artwork on the walls. But Adrian led her past it to a smaller room she hadn't seen before. A sunroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens, and a table set for two. "I thought you might prefer something less formal," he said, pulling out her chair. Ava sat, watching as Margaret appeared with covered dishes that she set between them with practiced efficiency. The older woman departed without a word, leaving them alone. "Does she always move that quietly?" Ava asked, lifting one of the covers to reveal what looked like homemade quiche. "Margaret was trained by my grandmother, who believed good household staff should be invisible." Adrian served her a portion before taking his own. "Though I suspect she also has opinions about us, and is choosing to keep them to herself for now." "Opinions about what?" "About the fact that I've brought home a pregnant woman I'm not married to." Adrian's tone was dry. "Margaret is old-fashioned. She probably thinks I've dishonored you." "Have you?" Ava took a bite of the quiche, spinach and Gruyere, perfectly seasoned and still warm. "That depends on your definition." Adrian watched her eat with an intensity that made her self-conscious. "I took you to my bed without any promises beyond that night. I didn't ask your last name or where you lived. And then I let you walk away without a word because I convinced myself it was better that way." "It was better that way." Ava set down her fork. "We had one night, Adrian. That's all it was ever supposed to be." "Was it?" He leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Because I think about that night constantly. How you looked in my bed. How you tasted on my tongue. The way you said my name when I made you come." Heat flooded through her, settling low in her belly. "Stop." "Why?" "It's the truth." His voice dropped into that rough register that did dangerous things to her pulse. "I've had a lot of women, Ava. I won't lie about that. But none of them stayed in my head the way you did. None of them made me question whether letting them leave was the right choice. You didn't let me leave. I chose to go. Because you were scared. Not an accusation, just a statement of fact. You woke up in my bed and realized exactly who you'd spent the night with, and it terrified you. So you ran before I could wake up and see that fear in your eyes. Ava wanted to deny it, but he was right. She'd woken up in that massive penthouse bedroom, seen Adrian sleeping beside her, all dangerous beauty and unconscious power, and panicked. Because men like him didn't end up with women like her. Because whatever had happened between them was a fantasy that couldn't survive daylight. I wasn't scared of you, she said quietly. I was scared of wanting you, of wanting something I knew I couldn't have. Adrian went very still. Who says you can't have it? Reality, common sense, the fact that we live in completely different worlds. Ava pushed the quiche around her plate. You're a crime boss, Adrian. You have enemies who shoot at you. You live in a mansion with security teams and helicopter escapes. I worked 3 jobs just to afford rent on a studio apartment. We're not compatible. We made a child together. I'd say that's fairly compatible. That's biology, not compatibility. But even as she said it, Ava knew it was a weak argument, because sitting here with him, trading barbs and truths in equal measure, felt more compatible than anything she'd experienced with Danny or any of the forgettable men before him. Eat, Adrian commanded, his tone gentling. You're feeding 2 people now. She obeyed, partially because the quiche was delicious and partially because it gave her something to do with her hands. They ate in silence for a few minutes, and Ava found herself studying him when she thought he wasn't looking. He moved with such controlled precision, every gesture deliberate and efficient. No wasted motion, no unnecessary flourishes. It should have been cold, mechanical even. Instead, it was hypnotic. What? Adrian's voice made her realize she'd been staring. I'm trying to figure you out. Ava set down her fork. You're not what I expected a crime boss to be. What did you expect? I don't know. More obviously violent? Less, she gestured vaguely at him. Refined. Violence and refinement aren't mutually exclusive. Adrian's smile was sharp. Some of the most brutal men in history were also the most cultured. They appreciated art and music and fine wine while ordering executions. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be honest. He pushed his plate aside, giving her his full attention. You want to know who I am, Ava? I'm someone who was born into this world and learned early that showing weakness gets you killed. I'm someone who's made decisions that would keep you awake at night. I've hurt people, killed people, built an empire on fear and respect in equal measure. Ava's hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, protective. But, Adrian continued, his voice softening, I'm also someone who keeps my word, who protects what's mine with everything I have, who understands the value of loyalty and the cost of betrayal. I'm not a good man, Ava. I won't pretend to be. But I am a man who will burn the world down before I let anything happen to you or our child. The declaration should have terrified her. Instead, it sent a thrill through her chest that she didn't want to examine too closely. Your mother wants us to get married, she said, changing the subject before she could do something stupid like tell him she believed every word. My mother wants a lot of things. Adrian's expression hardened. Marriage would solve certain problems. It would legitimize the child in her eyes, ensure the succession stays within the family. But I'm not going to force you into something you don't want. Really? Because the last 24 hours suggest you're very comfortable making decisions for me. Decisions about your safety, yes. Adrian stood, moving around the table to stand beside her chair. But marriage is different. That's a choice that affects the rest of your life, and I won't make it for you. Ava tilted her head back to look at him. What if your mother doesn't accept that? Then she'll learn the same lesson you're teaching her. His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing across her lips. That the people I care about don't bend easily. You care about me? The question escaped before she could stop it. I wouldn't have you here if I didn't. His thumb continued its maddening path across her mouth. I wouldn't have spent 6 months thinking about you. Wouldn't have had my people watching your ex the moment I realized he was connected to Victor. Wouldn't have moved heaven and earth to keep you safe. That's not caring. That's obsession. With you, I'm not sure there's a difference. Adrian leaned down, bringing his mouth close to hers without quite touching. Tell me you haven't thought about that night. Tell me you don't remember how good we were together. Ava's breath caught. She should push him away, should maintain some distance and dignity. But her body remembered his touch with vivid clarity, and the heat in his eyes was making it hard to think straight. I remember, she whispered. Good. He pulled back slightly, and she hated the small sound of protest that escaped her. Because when you're ready, when you decide you want me again, I'll be waiting. But it has to be your choice, Ava. Your decision. I won't take what you don't freely give. Then he was moving away, putting distance between them, and Ava felt the loss of his warmth like a physical thing. I have business to attend to this afternoon, Adrian said, his voice returning to that controlled neutrality. Margaret will show you around the estate if you'd like. Or you can rest, whatever you prefer. Business? Ava stood on shaky legs. What kind of business? The kind that keeps you safe. His expression was unreadable. Victor's people failed last night, but that doesn't mean the threat is gone. I need to send a message. Make it clear that touching you means war. Adrian, don't ask me not to protect you. His voice hardened. Don't ask me to be gentle with the people who would hurt you, because I won't. I can't. I was going to ask you to be careful. The words surprised them both. Whatever you're planning, just come back. Something raw flashed across his face. I'll always come back to you. That's a promise. He left her standing in the sunroom, and Ava sank back into her chair, her heart racing. The quiche sat forgotten on the table as she processed everything, his words, his touch, the terrifying realization that she was starting to care about him too. The afternoon passed in a blur. Margaret gave her a tour of the estate that revealed just how massive the property was. There was a gym, a library that could rival a small bookstore, a media room with a screen that took up an entire wall. The kitchen was a chef's dream, all commercial-grade appliances and marble countertops. The staff quarters are in the west wing, Margaret explained as they walked. Most of them come in daily, but we have a few who live on site. Security is always present, of course, 24-hour rotations. How many security personnel? Ava asked. That varies depending on the threat level. Margaret's tone suggested this was perfectly normal. Currently, we're at enhanced protection. 30 guards on the property, another 20 monitoring the perimeter. 50 armed men, just to keep her safe. The thought made Ava dizzy. They ended the tour in the library, and Ava spent the rest of the afternoon curled up in a leather armchair with a book she couldn't concentrate on. Her mind kept drifting to Adrian, to whatever he was doing, to the violence he'd so casually mentioned. He'd killed people, admitted it without hesitation or remorse. She should be horrified, should be planning her escape the moment she had an opportunity. Instead, she was worried about him. Dinner was served in the small sunroom again, but Adrian didn't join her. Margaret brought her a perfectly prepared salmon with roasted vegetables, along with the information that Mr. Voss had been delayed but would return before midnight. Ava ate alone, watching the sun set over the gardens and trying not to imagine what was keeping him. She was in the library again, having given up on sleep, when she heard the commotion. Voices in the foyer, sharp and urgent. Her heart leapt into her throat as she set down her book and moved toward the door. Adrian's voice cut through the chaos, giving orders in that tone that brooked no argument. Ava reached the foyer just in time to see him stride through the front door, blood on his shirt and a cut above his eyebrow. Adrian? She was moving before she could think, crossing the marble floor in seconds. He caught her as she reached him, his hands gripping her shoulders. I'm fine. It's not my blood. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. You're hurt. She reached up toward the cut on his face, but he caught her hand. It's nothing, a scratch. His eyes searched her face, and something in them softened. You were worried. Of course I was worried. Ava pulled her hand free and pressed it against his chest, feeling his heart beating strong and steady beneath her palm. You said you were sending a message. You didn't say you'd come back bleeding. The message has been sent. Adrian's voice held grim satisfaction. Victor knows what happens when he comes after what's mine. What did you do? What I had to. He wouldn't elaborate, and the set of his jaw told her not to push. Come, I need to clean up. She followed him up the stairs, ignoring the staff who scattered as they passed. Adrian led her not to his own room but to hers, closing the door behind them with a decisive click. "You should let me look at that cut," Ava said, moving toward the bathroom. "It's fine." "Adrian," she turned to face him, hands on her hips. "Let me help." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right." In the bathroom, Ava ran warm water over a washcloth while Adrian leaned against the counter, watching her with that intensity she was starting to recognize. When she turned to face him, cloth in hand, he was closer than she expected. "This might sting," she warned, reaching up to clean the cut. "I've had worse." But he held still as she worked, his eyes never leaving her face. The cut wasn't deep, just a shallow slash that had already stopped bleeding. Ava cleaned it carefully, very aware of how close they were standing, how his hands had come to rest on her hips, steadying her. "There," she said softly. "All done." "Thank you." Adrian's thumbs moved in those small circles against her hips, and heat pooled low in her belly. "You didn't have to worry about me." "I know." Ava set the washcloth aside, but she didn't step back. "I did anyway." "Why?" "Because despite everything, despite the fact that you've turned my life upside down and made decisions for me and dragged me into a world I don't understand, I don't want you hurt." The admission felt dangerous, but she couldn't take it back now. "That probably makes me stupid. That makes you compassionate." Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, and this time she didn't pull away. "It's one of the things that drew me to you that night. You looked at me like I was just a man, not a monster." "Are you a monster?" "Sometimes." He was brutally honest. "When I need to be. When it's the only language my enemies understand. And tonight? Tonight, I was monstrous." His voice dropped lower. "I made sure Victor's people understood exactly what happens when they target you. I doubt they'll be walking properly for weeks." Ava should have been horrified, should have pushed him away and demanded he never speak to her again. But standing in the warm bathroom light, feeling the rough calluses on his palm against her cheek, all she could think was that he'd done it for her, to protect her. "I'm not going to ask for details," she said quietly. "Good, because I wouldn't give them." Adrian's thumb traced her cheekbone. "Some things are better left in the dark." "Adrian, I should go." But he didn't move, didn't release her. "Let you rest. You could stay." The words escaped before Ava could think them through. "Just to talk, not anything else. Just talk." Something shifted in his expression, surprise maybe, or hope. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm asking anyway." Ava stepped back, immediately missing his warmth. "Give me a minute to change." She escaped into the bedroom, heart racing. What was she doing? Inviting Adrian to stay was playing with fire, but she didn't want to be alone tonight, didn't want to lie awake wondering if he was all right. Ava changed quickly into sleep shorts and a t-shirt, then emerged to find Adrian had removed his blood-stained shirt and was washing his hands in the sink. The sight of his bare torso, all defined muscle and smooth skin, made her mouth go dry. He glanced up, catching her staring, and something heated flickered in his eyes. "Like what you see?" "I've seen it before," Ava said, aiming for casual and missing by a mile. "And yet you're looking like it's the first time." Adrian dried his hands, then moved past her into the bedroom. "Where do you want me?" "The sitting room." Safer than the bed, less tempting. They settled onto the sofa, and Ava curled into the corner with a pillow clutched to her chest. Adrian took the opposite end, giving her space, though his eyes tracked her every movement. "Tell me about your family," she said, needing to fill the silence with something neutral. "Your mother seems intense." "That's diplomatic." Adrian's smile was wry. "Elena Voss is a force of nature. She built half of what I have now, back when my father was still alive. He ran the operations, but she ran everything else. The legitimate businesses, the social connections, the political relationships. She sounds formidable." "She is. She's also fiercely protective of family." Adrian's expression grew more serious. "When my father died, she could have taken over entirely. A lot of people expected her to, but she stepped back, let me prove I could handle it. That doesn't mean she's not still pulling strings behind the scenes." Is that why she wants us to marry? To make sure she maintains control? Partially. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, mussing it further. But mostly because she's traditional. She believes children should be born within marriage, that family legacy matters above all else. The idea of her grandchild being illegitimate? He trailed off. It offends her sense of order. And what do you believe? Adrian turned to look at her fully. I believe that child is mine, regardless of a piece of paper. I believe you deserve the choice to marry me or not, without pressure or coercion. And I believe that my mother will eventually accept whatever decision you make, even if she fights it initially. You have a lot of faith in her flexibility. I have faith in her love for me, and her desire to know her grandchild. Adrian's hand moved to her ankle, his touch warm even through her socks. She'll come around, eventually. And if she doesn't, then she doesn't. Simple. Final. You and the baby come first. Everything else is negotiable. Ava studied him in the soft light, this complicated man who killed without remorse but spoke about their child with such reverence. You're very sure about this, about us. I'm sure about what I want. Adrian's thumb traced circles on her ankle. Whether you want the same thing is up to you. What do you want? You. In my bed, in my life, in my name if you'll have it. His honesty was devastating. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want to watch you grow round with my child and be there when they take their first breath. I want everything, Ava, and I'm willing to wait for you to want it too. Her breath caught. That's a lot of pressure. It's the truth, and I promised myself I wouldn't lie to you. Adrian's hand slid higher, to her calf, his touch gentle but possessive. You deserve honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. And what if I never want those things? What if I decide I can't be with someone who lives the way you do? Pain flickered across his face, quickly masked. Then I'll still protect you. Still make sure you and the baby have everything you need, but I'll do it from a distance if that's what you prefer. You'd let me go? I'd hate it. It would destroy me. His voice was rough. But yes, if that's what you truly wanted, I'd let you go, because keeping you against your will would destroy us both. Ava's chest ached. She should want to leave, should be planning her escape from this beautiful cage. But sitting here with Adrian's hand warm on her leg and his eyes dark with want and something deeper, she couldn't imagine choosing to walk away. I don't know what I want, she admitted. Everything is happening so fast. A week ago, my biggest problem was making rent. Now I'm living in a mansion, pregnant with a crime boss's baby, and being hunted by his enemies. I can't think straight. Then don't think. Adrian moved closer, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. Just feel. What does your instinct tell you? That I should run. Honest, even if it hurt to say. And what else? That I don't want to. Even more honest and infinitely more dangerous. Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, and this time when he leaned in, she didn't stop him. His lips brushed hers, soft and questioning, and Ava's eyes fluttered closed as she leaned into the kiss. It was nothing like their first kiss 6 months ago. That had been fire and desperation and reckless need. This was slower, sweeter, a promise rather than a demand. Adrian kissed her like she was precious, like he had all the time in the world to learn the shape of her mouth. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. We should stop, Adrian said, even as his thumb traced her lower lip. Probably. But Ava didn't move away. You need rest. The baby is fine. She caught his hand, holding it against her cheek. And I'm not tired. Ava. Her name was a warning and a plea. If we do this, I won't want to stop, and you're not ready for where this leads. How do you know what I'm ready for? Because I can see it in your eyes. Adrian's voice was strained. You're curious and attracted and maybe even starting to care, but you're not ready to trust me completely. Not yet. And I won't take advantage of that confusion. He was right, damn him. Ava knew he was right. But her body didn't care about logic or caution. Her body remembered how good they'd been together, how he'd made her feel wanted and cherished and alive. Stay anyway, she said. Just to sleep. I don't want to be alone. Adrian closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them, they were filled with heat and restraint in equal measure. That's asking a lot. I know. Ava stood, holding out her hand. But I'm asking anyway. He took her hand, let her lead him to the massive bed. They lay down on top of the covers, and Ava curled into his side, her head on his chest. His arm came around her, holding her close, and she could feel his heart beating strong and steady beneath her ear. This is torture, Adrian muttered, but his hand was stroking her hair with infinite gentleness. Good. Ava smiled against his chest. You deserve to suffer a little. For what? Taking care of you? For making me want things I shouldn't want. She tilted her head back to look at him. For being complicated and dangerous and impossible to figure out. I could say the same about you. Adrian's fingers tangled in her hair. You're not what I expected, Ava Carter. You're stronger than you look, braver than you know, and far more dangerous to my peace of mind than any enemy I've ever faced. That's ridiculous. It's the truth. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Now sleep. Tomorrow brings new challenges. Like your mother? Like my mother. Adrian's tone held resignation. She'll want to have breakfast with us, interrogate you properly, make her opinions known about our situation. That sounds terrifying. It will be. He tightened his arm around her. But I'll be there, and I won't let her bully you. Ava relaxed against him, feeling safer than she had any right to feel given the circumstances. Adrian? Thank you for everything, even the parts I'm angry about. His chest rumbled with quiet laughter. You're welcome, even though you shouldn't be thanking me. She drifted off like that, wrapped in his arms, listening to his heartbeat. And for the first time since that ultrasound had changed everything, Ava felt like maybe, just maybe, things might turn out okay. Even if okay looked nothing like what she'd imagined. Ava woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the realization that she was alone. The sheets beside her still held Adrian's warmth, which meant he hadn't been gone long. She sat up slowly, pushing her hair out of her face, and spotted the note on his pillow. Had to take an early call. Breakfast with my mother at 9. Don't let her intimidate you. Easy for him to say. Ava glanced at the clock. 8:15. 45 minutes to prepare herself for round 2 with Elena Voss. She showered quickly, then stood in front of the massive closet trying to decide what one wore to breakfast with a crime matriarch. The expensive clothes Adrian had provided suddenly felt like armor she didn't know how to wear. Finally, she settled on dark jeans and a soft cream sweater that didn't look too casual but didn't scream trying too hard either. Margaret appeared at precisely 8:50, her timing impeccable as always. Mr. Voss and his mother are waiting in the morning room. The morning room? Ava followed her down the hallway. Is that different from the sunroom? Considerably. Margaret's tone suggested the distinction was obvious. The sunroom is for informal meals. The morning room is where Mrs. Voss prefers to conduct family business. Family business. The word settled over Ava like a weight. The morning room turned out to be another study in elegant restraint, pale walls, antique furniture, and windows that overlooked a different section of the gardens. Elena sat at the head of a small table, looking immaculate in a navy suit that probably cost more than Ava used to make in a month. Adrian stood by the windows, phone to his ear, but he turned when Ava entered. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, then crossed the room to her side. His hand found the small of her back, warm and reassuring. Good morning. Morning. Ava was hyper-aware of Elena watching them, cataloging every detail of their interaction. Ava. Elena gestured to the chair beside her. Come, sit. We have much to discuss. Adrian's hand tightened briefly on her back, support or warning, she wasn't sure which, before he released her. Ava took the indicated chair, and Adrian sat across from her, his eyes never leaving her face. Margaret appeared with coffee and plates of food that looked too beautiful to eat, fresh fruit arranged like art, pastries that belonged in a French bakery, eggs prepared 3 different ways. I trust you slept well, Elena said, and there was something knowing in her tone that made Ava's cheeks heat. Very well, thank you. Good. You'll need your rest in the coming months. Elena added cream to her coffee with precise movements. Pregnancy is taxing enough without the additional stress of your situation. My situation being that people are trying to kill me? Ava kept her voice level. Elena's lips curved into something that might have been approval. Your situation being that you're carrying the Voss heir while unmarried and unprotected by anything except Adrian's word, which, while formidable, is not legally binding. Mother, Adrian's voice held a warning. Hush, I'm speaking to Ava. Elena turned her full attention to Ava, and it was like being pinned by a spotlight. You seem like an intelligent young woman. Practical, despite your circumstances. So let me be practical with you. This child you're carrying will inherit everything Adrian has built, but only if it's legitimate. The child will inherit regardless, Adrian interjected. Perhaps. But it will face challenges you cannot imagine, questions of legitimacy, claims from rivals, legal battles that could tie up the estate for years. Elena's gaze remained on Ava. Unless you're married, then the succession is clear, unchallenged, protected by law and tradition. You're talking about this baby like it's a business asset, Ava said quietly. I'm talking about this baby like it's the future of everything our family has built over 3 generations. Elena's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Adrian's father died building this empire. I've spent 30 years protecting it. And now there's a chance to secure it for another generation, but only if you're willing to do what's necessary. And what's necessary is marrying a man I barely know. You know him well enough to carry his child. Elena sipped her coffee delicately. And from what I observed last night, you know him well enough to trust him with your safety. Why not trust him with your future? Because safety and marriage are 2 different things. Ava's hands clenched in her lap. One is temporary protection. The other is a lifetime commitment. Nothing about your situation is temporary anymore. Elena set down her cup. The moment that child was conceived, you became permanent, whether you accept it or not. The words hit harder than Ava wanted to admit, because Elena was right. There was no going back to her old life, no pretending this was just a temporary arrangement until the danger passed. She was tied to Adrian now, to this world, whether she wanted to be or not. I understand your concerns, Elena continued, her tone softening fractionally. You come from a different world. This must all seem overwhelming, perhaps even frightening. But I need you to understand something, Ava. In our world, perception is reality. If you're seen as Adrian's mistress rather than his wife, you'll be treated as disposable, replaceable, a target for anyone who wants to hurt him. I'm already a target. You're a temporary target, the woman who got pregnant by accident. Elena leaned forward. But as his wife, as the mother of the legitimate Voss heir, you become untouchable, protected not just by Adrian's word, but by every alliance we've built. Every relationship we've cultivated. You become family, and we protect family above all else. Ava glanced at Adrian, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet during his mother's speech. His expression was carefully neutral, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. What do you want? She asked him directly. Not what your mother wants, not what's best for business. What do you actually want? Adrian set down his fork, giving her his full attention. I want you safe. I want our child protected. And I want you to choose to be here, not because you're trapped or scared, but because you want to be. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give right now. His voice was rough with honesty. Because yes, I want to marry you. I've wanted it since the moment I saw that ultrasound, but not like this, not with my mother applying pressure and you feeling cornered. Then send me away, Elena said, surprising them both. If my presence is the problem, I'll leave. Give you time to discuss this privately. You just got here, Adrian said and I can leave just as easily. Elena stood smooth and graceful despite her age. I've said what I needed to say. The rest is up to you both. She paused beside Ava's chair, and her hand came to rest briefly on Ava's shoulder. Think about what I've said, not for my sake or even for Adrian's, but for that child. Because they deserve every protection we can give them. Then she was gone, leaving Ava and Adrian alone in the suddenly too quiet room. I'm sorry, Adrian said after a long moment. She wasn't supposed to ambush you like that. She's not wrong, though. Ava pushed her eggs around her plate. About the protection, about the legitimacy issues. I've been so focused on my own feelings that I haven't really thought about what this means for the baby. The baby will be fine regardless. Adrian moved to the chair Elena had vacated, closer to Ava. I have lawyers who can ensure the succession is clear, marriage or not. But it would be easier if we were married. Yes. No point in lying. It would solve a lot of problems. Just not the problem of me not knowing if I can trust you. Ava finally looked at him. Or if I even want this life. I know. Adrian's hand covered hers on the table. And I'm not asking you to decide today. Take whatever time you need. Your mother seems to think we don't have time. My mother thinks a lot of things. That doesn't make them all true. His thumb traced circles on her hand. Yes, there are advantages to marriage. Yes, it would make certain things easier, but I'd rather have you choose me freely 6 months from now than agree under pressure today. And if I never choose you, pain flickered across his face, quickly masked. Then I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what I did wrong. But I won't force you, Ava. That's a line I won't cross. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that he meant what he said, but everything about her situation screamed that she was trapped, that the choice he was offering was an illusion. I need air, she said abruptly, standing. I need to think. I'll come with you. No. Ava softened the rejection with a hand on his shoulder. I need to be alone for a bit. Just in the gardens. I won't leave the property. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded. Take your phone, and if you see anything suspicious, call security immediately. I will. She squeezed his shoulder, then left before he could change his mind. The gardens were beautiful in the morning light, all dew-kissed flowers and precisely trimmed hedges. Ava followed one of the stone paths, very aware of the security presence that followed at a discreet distance. Even alone, she wasn't really alone. She ended up at a fountain tucked into a corner of the garden, surrounded by rose bushes that were still blooming despite the season. Sitting on the stone edge, she let her hand rest on her still flat stomach. What do we do? She whispered to the baby that couldn't hear her. Your father is a criminal who kills people. Your grandmother is terrifying, and I'm just a waitress who made one mistake and ended up here. Except it didn't feel like a mistake anymore. That was the problem. Sitting here in this beautiful garden, carrying a child she hadn't planned for, caught between a man she was starting to care for and a life she'd never imagined. It all felt strangely inevitable, like maybe that text message hadn't been an accident after all. Miss Carter. Ava turned to find a man approaching, not one of the security team, but someone older, distinguished, in an expensive suit. Something about him set off alarm bells in her head. I'm sorry, do I know you? Not yet, but we have a mutual acquaintance. The man stopped a few feet away, and Ava realized the security team had been intercepted by other men in suits. They were arguing in low voices, hands on their weapons but not drawing them. My name is Victor Constantine, and I think you and I need to have a conversation. Ice flooded Ava's veins. Victor, the man who'd sent people to kill her. The enemy Adrian had warned her about. I'm calling security. She reached for her phone, but Victor held up a hand. Please don't. I'm not here to hurt you. In fact, I'm here to help you. Help me? Ava's laugh was brittle. You tried to have me kidnapped. I tried to have you protected from Adrian Voss. Victor's voice was smooth, reasonable. There's a difference. I don't think there is. Then you're not as intelligent as you look. Victor moved slightly closer, and Ava stood, putting the fountain between them. Did Adrian tell you what he is? What he's done? He told me enough. Did he tell you about the families he's destroyed? The lives he's ruined? The people who've died because they got in his way? Victor's eyes were cold despite his gentle tone. Did he tell you that the moment you become inconvenient, you'll be just as disposable as everyone else he's used? That's not true. Isn't it? Think, Ava. You're a waitress. No family except a sister who can't protect you. No resources, no connections. What happens when Adrian gets bored? When the baby is born and you're no longer necessary to keep it safe? He would. He's done it before. Victor pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, then held it up. Recognize her? The photo showed a beautiful woman with dark hair and sad eyes. She looked vaguely familiar, but Ava couldn't place her. Her name was Isabella Moretti. She was pregnant with Adrian's child 3 years ago. Victor's voice was conversational, but his eyes were sharp. She died in a car accident 6 months into the pregnancy. Very tragic, very convenient. You're lying. I'm not. Check the records if you don't believe me. Isabella Moretti, age 27, died when her brakes failed on a mountain road. Victor pocketed his phone. Adrian grieved publicly. Privately, he moved on within weeks. Because that's what he does, Ava. He uses people until they're no longer useful. Ava's mind was racing. Was it true? Had there been someone before her? And if so, what had really happened? Even if that's true, she said slowly, it doesn't explain why you're telling me. What do you want? I want you to understand what you're dealing with, and I want to offer you an alternative. Victor's expression was earnest. Come with me. I'll get you out of here, set you up somewhere safe. You and your baby will be protected without being trapped in Adrian's world. And in exchange, you tell me everything you know about Adrian's operations, his associates, his shipments, his weaknesses. Victor shrugged. Nothing that will get him killed, just enough to level the playing field. You want me to betray him. I want you to save yourself and your child from a man who will eventually destroy you both. Victor extended his hand. Come with me now, Ava, before it's too late. For one terrible moment, Ava actually considered it. The doubt Victor had planted was growing, spreading poison through her thoughts. What if he was right? What if Adrian was just using her? What if the moment she became inconvenient, she'd end up like Isabella Moretti? Then she remembered Adrian's hands on her face last night, gentle despite their capability for violence, the way he'd kissed her forehead this morning before leaving, the absolute certainty in his voice when he'd promised to protect her. No. Ava straightened her spine. I don't know what game you're playing, Victor, but I'm not interested. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Ava raised her voice. Security! The security team broke free from whatever had been holding them back, weapons drawn, surrounding Victor in seconds. But he just smiled, hands raised in surrender. Think about what I said, Ava. When Adrian shows his true colors, and he will, remember that I offered you a way out. Victor allowed himself to be led away, but his eyes stayed on her. The offer stands. Anytime you're ready. Then he was gone, escorted off the property by a dozen armed men. Ava sank back onto the fountain edge, her hands shaking. She needed to tell Adrian, needed to ask him about Isabella Moretti and find out if Victor's story was true. But part of her was terrified of what she might learn. She was still sitting there 10 minutes later when Adrian came running through the gardens, his face stark with fear. Ava! He reached her in seconds, his hands framing her face, checking her for injuries. Are you hurt? Did he touch you? I'm fine. She caught his wrists, steadying him. He just talked. What did he say? Adrian's voice was deadly calm now, his eyes scanning the area as if Victor might materialize again. He told me about Isabella Moretti. Adrian went very still. Of course he did. Is it true? Was there someone before me? Yes. Adrian's hands dropped from her face. Isabella was pregnant with my child 3 years ago, and she did die in a car accident. Did you kill her? The question hung between them, sharp and terrible. No. Adrian's voice was rough, but I might as well have. The car accident wasn't an accident. It was Victor's people sending me a message, proving they could reach anyone I cared about. His jaw tightened. I failed to protect her. Failed to see the threat until it was too late, and she died because of it. Ava's hands moved to her stomach, protective. And the baby? Died with her. Pain flashed across Adrian's face, raw and real. I swore that day that I would never let it happen again, that I would never care about someone enough to make them a target. His eyes met hers. And then you walked back into my life, already pregnant, already in danger. And I realized I didn't have a choice. I had to protect you, had to keep you safe because losing you would destroy me just as completely as losing Isabella did. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew how it would look. Knew you'd question whether I was capable of keeping you safe when I'd failed so spectacularly before. Adrian's voice cracked. But I'm not the same man I was 3 years ago, Ava. I've learned from my mistakes. Built better security, cut off Victor's access to my operations, eliminated every vulnerability I could find. What happened to Isabella won't happen to you. Ava studied his face, searching for any hint of deception, but all she saw was grief and determination in equal measure. Victor said you'd become bored with me, that I'd be disposable once the baby was born. Victor is a liar who wants you to doubt me. Adrian's hands clenched at his sides. But I can't prove that to you with words. I can only prove it with time and actions. So I'm asking you to give me that chance, to let me show you that you and our child will always be my priority. How do I know you're not lying too? You don't. Brutal honesty. You have to choose who to trust, me or him. The man who's kept you safe for the last 3 days, or the man who sent people to kidnap you. Adrian stepped closer. I'm not going to tell you what to do, Ava, but I'm going to ask you this. When Victor had you alone in the garden, did he hurt you? No? Did he threaten you? Not directly. And did my security team protect you, or did they stand by and let him approach? Ava thought back to the men in suits, the way they'd been intercepted. They tried to protect me. Something stopped them. Victor's people. Probably threatened them or their families. Adrian's voice was grim. That's his style. He doesn't kill when he can manipulate, doesn't fight when he can undermine. He wants you to doubt me because a divided enemy is easier to defeat. So this was all a manipulation? Every word of it, even the truth about Isabella, was twisted to serve his purposes. Adrian's hands came up to her shoulders, gentle but firm. I failed Isabella. That's true. But I won't fail you. I can't. Because you're not just someone I care about, Ava. You're the mother of my child. And that makes you untouchable in my world. Ava wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that his words were genuine and not just another form of manipulation. But standing in the garden where Victor had just planted seeds of doubt, she couldn't be sure of anything. I need time, she said finally, to think, to process all of this. Take all the time you need. Adrian released her shoulders. But do it inside the house, where it's safe, where Victor can't get to you again. She let him lead her back through the gardens, security forming a protective circle around them. Her mind was spinning with everything she'd learned, about Isabella, about Victor's methods, about the danger that seemed to come from every direction. Inside, Margaret was waiting with concerned eyes and fresh tea. Miss Carter, are you all right? I'm fine. Ava accepted the tea gratefully. Just shaken. Understandable. Security has been doubled. Mister. Constantine won't be getting onto the property again. Margaret's tone suggested this was a personal affront. Is there anything else you need? Privacy? Ava glanced at Adrian. I need to be alone for a while. Pain flickered across his face, but he nodded. I'll be in my office if you need me. Ava retreated to her suite and spent the next few hours sitting on the balcony, trying to make sense of everything. Victor's words kept replaying in her head, mixing with Adrian's explanations until she couldn't tell truth from lies anymore. Her phone buzzed, a text from Maya. Finally. She'd been trying to reach her sister for days. Are you okay? Haven't heard from you in forever. Getting worried. Ava stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What could she possibly say? That she was living with a crime boss because she'd accidentally gotten pregnant? That she was being hunted by his enemies and might have to marry him for protection? I'm fine. Just dealing with some stuff. We'll call soon. Love you. It was inadequate and she knew it, but anything more would require explanation she wasn't ready to give. Another buzz, this time from an unknown number. The offer stands. When you're ready to leave, call this number. Ava deleted the message immediately, but the damage was done. Victor had her number, which meant he had ways of reaching her even inside Adrian's fortress. She was about to turn off her phone when it rang, Adrian's name on the screen. Yes? Can you come to my office? There's something you need to see. His voice was carefully neutral, which set off alarm bells. What is it? Just come, please. She found him in a room she hadn't seen before, his private office, all dark wood and leather, and walls lined with monitors showing security feeds from every angle of the property. He was standing in front of the largest screen, his posture rigid. What's wrong? Adrian turned and his expression made her stomach drop. Daniel Morrison is dead. The room tilted. What? Your ex. He was found an hour ago in his apartment, single gunshot to the head. Adrian's voice was carefully controlled. Victor's people are claiming it was suicide, but the police aren't buying it. Oh my God. Ava's hand went to her mouth. Danny, we weren't together anymore, but he didn't deserve— No, he didn't. Adrian moved to her side, steadying her with a hand on her elbow. But Victor needed to tie up loose ends. Daniel knew too much about his operations, and Victor wanted to send me another message. What message? That he can reach the people around me whenever he wants. That no one is safe. Adrian's jaw was tight. He killed Daniel to prove a point, and to make sure you understood the stakes. Ava felt sick. Danny had been weak and dishonest and tangled up in things he shouldn't have been, but he'd also been the first person to tell her she was beautiful, the man who'd held her during her grandmother's funeral. He'd been part of her life, however briefly, and now he was dead because of her connection to Adrian. "This is my fault," she whispered. "No." Adrian turned her to face him, his hands firm on her shoulders. "This is Victor's fault. He pulled the trigger. He made the choice. You're no more responsible for Daniel's death than you are for the weather." "But if I hadn't sent that ultrasound, then Victor would have found another way to get to me. This isn't about you, Ava. It's about him and me in a war that's been brewing for years." Adrian's voice softened. "Daniel's death is tragic, but it's not your fault. Do you understand me?" She wanted to believe that she wasn't responsible for a man's death, but the guilt sat heavy in her chest, making it hard to breathe. "I want to go to the funeral," she said. "Absolutely not." "Adrian?" "No." His voice was final. "Victor will be watching, waiting for you to show up so he can make another move. I won't risk you like that." "So I'm just supposed to hide here forever? Never leave this estate?" "Until Victor is dealt with, yes." Adrian's expression was unyielding. "I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's the reality of your situation." "My situation?" Ava pulled away from him. "You keep saying that like it's something separate from me, like I'm just a problem to be managed. That's not what I meant, isn't it?" She was angry now, the fear and guilt transforming into something hotter. "Ever since that ultrasound, you've made every decision for me. Where I live, who I see, what I do. I don't even have my own phone anymore. This one is provided by your people, monitored by your security. When does it stop, Adrian? When do I get to make my own choices?" "When it's safe." "And when will that be? When Victor's dead? When all your enemies are eliminated? That's never going to happen." Her voice rose. "You live in a world where there's always another threat, always another enemy. If I wait for it to be safe, I'll be waiting forever." Adrian's hands clenched at his sides. "What do you want from me, Ava? To let you walk into danger? To stand by while Victor kills you the way he killed Isabella?" "I want you to treat me like a partner instead of a prisoner." The words exploded out of her. "I want you to ask instead of command. I want to feel like I have some control over my own life." "You want control?" Adrian's voice dropped dangerously low. "Fine. Here's a choice. You can stay here where you're protected and safe. Or you can leave, walk out that door right now, and take your chances with Victor. Those are your options. Choose." The ultimatum hung between them, sharp and painful. "That's not a real choice," Ava said quietly. "It's the only choice I can give you." Adrian's expression was anguished. "I'm trying to keep you alive, Ava. I'm trying to make sure our child has a chance to be born. And yes, that means making hard decisions that you don't like. But I won't apologize for protecting you. Even if that protection feels like a cage? Even then." He moved closer, and she could see the strain in his eyes, the toll this was taking on him too. "I lost Isabella because I didn't take the threat seriously enough. Because I thought love and good intentions would be enough to keep her safe. I won't make that mistake again, even if it means you hate me for it." Ava's anger drained away, leaving only exhaustion in its wake. "I don't hate you." "You should." Adrian's voice was raw. "You should hate me for dragging you into this world, for getting you pregnant, for turning your life upside down. But I can't change any of it, and I wouldn't if I could. Because that baby," his hand moved to her stomach, "that baby is mine. And I will do whatever it takes to make sure it survives, even if that means becoming the villain in your story." She covered his hand with hers, feeling the warmth of his palm through her sweater. "You're not the villain, Adrian." "Then what am I?" "I don't know yet. Honest, even if it hurt. But I'm trying to figure it out." His phone buzzed, and he checked it with obvious reluctance. Whatever he saw made his expression harden. "I have to go. there's a situation that needs my attention. What kind of situation? The kind that involves making sure Victor understands there are consequences for killing people under my protection. Adrian's voice was cold, emotionless. The crime boss was back, the vulnerable man from moments ago carefully locked away. I'll be back before dark. Adrian, wait! But he was already gone, leaving her alone in the office surrounded by security monitors showing a property that looked like paradise but felt increasingly like a prison. Ava sank into his chair, overwhelmed by everything. Danny's death, Victor's manipulation, Adrian's ultimatum. Her hand moved to her stomach again, to the life growing inside her that had started all of this. What am I supposed to do? She whispered to the baby. How do I protect you when I can't even protect myself? The monitors flickered, showing different angles of the estate. Gardens, driveway, forest perimeter, and in one corner a car pulling up to the front entrance. Elena Voss stepped out, her expression grim. Ava's phone buzzed, a text from Margaret. Mrs. Voss requests your presence in the library. Of course she did, because apparently today wasn't complete without another confrontation. Ava found Elena in the library, standing by the windows with a glass of wine in hand. She turned when Ava entered, and her expression was unreadable. Adrian told me what happened, about Daniel Morrison. Elena's voice was softer than Ava expected. I'm sorry for your loss. We weren't together anymore. That doesn't make his death any less tragic. Elena gestured to the chair beside her. Sit, please. Ava sat, wary. I know what you're thinking, Elena continued, that this is all my fault. That if I hadn't pushed for marriage, if I hadn't made you feel pressured, maybe things would be different. I wasn't thinking that. You should be, because you'd be right. Elena took a sip of her wine. I came here to apologize. My approach this morning was aggressive. I forgot what it was like to be young and scared and thrown into this world without preparation. You were thrown into this world? Not exactly, but I wasn't born into it either. Elena's smile was wistful. I met Adrian's father at a gallery opening. I was a curator. He was buying art to launder money. We should never have worked, but we did for 30 years until the day he died. She paused. And I spent every one of those years terrified that something would happen to him, that his world would swallow him whole and leave me alone. What changed? I realized that love in our world looks different than it does in yours. It's not flowers and romance and fairy tale endings. It's choosing to stay when every instinct says to run. It's finding ways to protect each other in a world that wants to destroy you both. Elena met Ava's eyes. Adrian loves you. Maybe not the way you want yet, but he will. And when he does, it will be fierce and consuming and terrifying. The question is whether you'll be brave enough to love him back. I don't know if I am. Then figure it out, because that baby deserves parents who chose each other, not parents trapped together by circumstance. Elena set down her wine glass. I'm leaving tomorrow, returning to the city, but I'll be back for the wedding. There isn't going to be a wedding. We'll see. Elena's smile was knowing. You're stronger than you think, Ava Carter, and my son is more vulnerable than he appears. Together, you might just survive this. She left Ava alone in the library with those words echoing in her head. The hours passed slowly. Ava tried to read, tried to rest, but her mind wouldn't quiet. Danny was dead. Victor was circling. Adrian was off doing things she didn't want to imagine. And she was trapped in this beautiful cage waiting for the next crisis to hit. Darkness fell, and still Adrian didn't return. Margaret brought dinner to her suite, comfort food, soup, and bread, and something chocolate for dessert. He'll be back soon, she said gently. He always comes back. But midnight came and went, and Ava was still alone. She finally fell asleep on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, her phone clutched in her hand in case he called. She woke to someone lifting her, strong arms cradling her against a familiar chest. Adrian carried her to the bedroom, laying her gently on the bed. You're back, she murmured, still half asleep. I'm back. His voice was rough with exhaustion. I'm sorry I was gone so long. Is it done? Whatever you had to do. It's done. Adrian pulled the blanket over her. Victor knows what happens when he crosses lines. He won't make the same mistake twice. Ava caught his hand before he could pull away. Stay. Ava, please, I don't want to be alone tonight. Adrian hesitated, then nodded. He disappeared into the bathroom, and she heard water running. When he emerged, he'd changed into sleep pants, his chest bare. He slid into bed beside her, and Ava immediately curled into his warmth. "I'm sorry about earlier," she whispered, "about saying you were treating me like a prisoner." "You weren't wrong." His arm came around her, holding her close. "I am controlling. I do make decisions without asking. But Ava, I swear to you, it's only because I'm terrified of losing you." "You won't lose me." "You can't promise that." "Neither can you." She tilted her head back to look at him in the darkness. "But we're both here now. That has to count for something." Adrian's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing across her cheek. "It counts for everything." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of unspoken promises. And Ava kissed him back, choosing in that moment to stop fighting what she felt, to stop running from the impossible reality of their situation. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian pressed his forehead to hers. "One day at a time," he whispered. "One day at a time," Ava agreed. And somehow, in the darkness of that enormous bedroom, wrapped in each other's arms, it felt like enough. Morning light filtered through the curtains, and Ava woke to find Adrian already awake, watching her with an intensity that should have been unsettling, but somehow wasn't. "How long have you been staring at me?" she asked, her voice still rough with sleep. "Long enough to memorize every detail." His fingers traced the line of her jaw. "You're beautiful in the morning. I didn't get to appreciate that the first time. Because I ran away. Because I let you." Adrian's hand moved to her hair, tangling in the strands. "I won't make that mistake again." Ava's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Dr. Reeves' office confirming her appointment for later that week. The reminder of the baby, of the reality they were building together, sent warmth through her chest. "We should talk," she said, sitting up. "About everything. About what happens next." Adrian propped himself up on one elbow, giving her his full attention. "What do you want to happen next?" "I want to understand your world better. Not just the danger, but everything. How you built this empire, what you actually do, where you see it going." Ava pulled the sheet around herself. If I'm going to raise a child here, I need to know what I'm choosing." "That's fair." Adrian sat up fully, his expression serious. "What do you want to know?" "Start with the truth. All of it. No more protecting me from the ugly parts." Adrian was quiet for a long moment, and Ava could see him weighing what to share, how much honesty was too much. Finally, he spoke. "My father built this empire on 3 things: fear, loyalty, and strategic violence. When he died, I inherited all of it. The businesses, the enemies, the blood on our hands." His voice was steady, unflinching. "I could have walked away, sold everything, disappeared, started over somewhere clean, but I didn't. Because this world, as ugly as it is mine, and I'm good at it." "Good at what exactly?" "At maintaining order in chaos, at knowing when to show mercy and when to be ruthless, at building alliances that keep the peace and breaking the ones that threaten it." Adrian's gaze held hers. "I don't deal drugs to kids or traffic people. I don't run protection rackets that destroy small businesses. Those are Victor's methods, and they're why he'll eventually fall. But I do control territory. I do handle money that comes from illegal sources. And I do eliminate threats when negotiation fails. Like what you did last night. Yes. No apology, just acknowledgement." Victor needed to understand that killing Daniel crossed a line, so I made sure 3 of his operations were shut down permanently, sent a message that can't be misunderstood. "Did anyone die?" Adrian's jaw tightened. 2 of his men. They chose to fight rather than surrender. I would have preferred to avoid it, but I won't lose sleep over it either. The honesty was brutal, but Ava appreciated it more than pretty lies would have been. "And the legitimate businesses Elena mentioned?" "Real estate mostly. Some tech investments, a few restaurants and hotels. Things my mother built to give us clean income and social legitimacy." A ghost of a smile crossed Adrian's face. "She's better at that side than I ever was. I handle the shadows. She handles the light." "And what happens to all of this when the baby comes?" Ava's hand moved to her stomach. "Do they inherit an empire built on violence? Do they spend their whole life looking over their shoulder? Not if I can help it. Adrian moved closer, his hand covering hers on her stomach. I've been working for years to transition more operations into legitimate channels. The goal is that by the time our child is old enough to understand what we do, most of it will be legal, clean. That's a long game. It's the only game worth playing. His voice softened. I don't want our child to live the way I did, Ava. Always afraid, always looking for threats, always wondering who to trust. I want better for them. For us. Then why not just walk away now? Sell everything to your mother, disappear, start over. Because walking away creates a power vacuum, and power vacuums get filled by men like Victor, who don't care about collateral damage or innocent lives. Adrian's expression was grim. At least with me in control, there are rules, lines that don't get crossed. If I leave, all of that goes with me. Ava absorbed this, understanding the terrible logic of it. So you're trapped too, just in a different way. Yes. The admission seemed to cost him something. But I'm choosing to be trapped. That makes it different. Does it? I'd like to think so. Adrian pulled her closer until she was tucked against his side. But maybe we're both just telling ourselves comfortable lies to make impossible choices bearable. They lay in silence for a while, and Ava found herself thinking about choices. The ones she'd made, the ones she hadn't, and the ones still ahead of her. Your mother said I should figure out if I'm brave enough to love you, she said quietly. Adrian's entire body went still. And have you? Figured it out? I'm starting to. Ava tilted her head to look at him. I think I've been so focused on being angry about losing control that I haven't let myself feel anything else. But last night, when you were gone, and I didn't know if you were safe, her voice caught. I was terrified. Not just for myself or the baby, but for you. Ava, let me finish. She pressed her fingers to his lips. I'm not ready to say I love you. I'm not even sure I know what love looks like in your world. But I'm willing to try. To stay, to learn, to build something with you. One day at a time. Adrian caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. That's more than I deserve, more than I dared hope for. Don't make me regret it. But there was no heat in her words, just affection and the first fragile shoots of trust. I'll spend every day trying not to. Adrian pulled her into a kiss that was deep and claiming, and full of promises neither of them could guarantee, but both wanted to believe in. When they finally broke apart, the sun was fully up, and Margaret was undoubtedly waiting with breakfast. But neither of them moved, content to stay in the warm cocoon of the bed a little longer. There's something else we need to discuss, Adrian said eventually. The wedding. Ava groaned. I knew that was coming. Hear me out. He shifted so they were facing each other. I know you don't want to be forced into marriage, and I meant what I said about not pressuring you, but there's a practical reality we can't ignore. As my wife, you have legal protections that you don't have as my girlfriend or the mother of my child. Elena made that argument already. I know, but I'm making it differently. Adrian took her hand, lacing their fingers together. I'm not asking you to marry me because it's what my mother wants, or because it solves succession problems. I'm asking because I want you to have every possible shield against people like Victor. I want your name on documents that give you access to resources, to lawyers, to money that can't be frozen or seized. I want you protected by law as well as by my word. That's still a practical argument, not a romantic one. Romance is a luxury we might not have time for. Adrian's thumb traced circles on her hand. But I can promise you this. If you agree to marry me, I will spend the rest of my life earning the right to call you my wife. Not just protecting you, but partnering with you, respecting your choices, building something real between us. Ava studied his face, searching for manipulation or coercion, but all she saw was sincerity and a vulnerability that he rarely showed. If I say yes, and I'm not saying I am, what would it look like? Small ceremony, just family, nothing public, nothing that draws attention. Adrian's voice was careful, like he was afraid of spooking her. We could do it here on the estate, this week, if you're willing. Or we could wait until you feel ready. This week? Ava's eyes widened. That's fast. Victor is still a threat. The faster you're legally protected, the better. Adrian released her hand, giving her space. But if you need more time, we'll make it work. I won't rush you into something you're not ready for. Except you are rushing me. You're telling me there's a threat that requires immediate action, which is just another form of pressure. You're right. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. And I'm sorry. I'm trying to balance keeping you safe with respecting your autonomy, and I'm failing at both. The admission surprised her. In the time she'd known him, Adrian had been unfailingly confident, always certain of his decisions. Seeing him uncertain, vulnerable, made him more human somehow. What if we compromise? Ava said slowly, the idea forming as she spoke. We do the legal marriage now. Small, private, just what's necessary for protection. But the real wedding, the one with vows that mean something, and a celebration, and all of that, we save for later. When I'm ready. When we've built something real. Adrian's expression shifted, hope and relief mixing together. You'd be willing to do that? I'd be willing to try. Ava's hand moved to her stomach. For the baby. For the protection. And maybe a little bit for you. I'll take a little bit. Adrian pulled her close, his arms banding around her. I'll take whatever you're willing to give and work for the rest. You'd better. But Ava was smiling against his chest, feeling lighter than she had in days. The legal ceremony happened 3 days later in Adrian's office, witnessed by Margaret and one of Adrian's lawyers. It took less than 10 minutes, signatures on documents, perfunctory words from a judge who was clearly accustomed to handling unusual requests, and then it was done. Ava Carter became Ava Voss. The name felt foreign, too big for her to fill, but when Adrian slid a simple platinum band onto her finger, elegant and understated, nothing like the ostentatious rings she'd expected, it felt right somehow. Mrs. Voss, he said softly, and there was something in his voice that made her chest ache. Mr. Voss, she replied, testing out the words. The lawyer departed quickly, leaving them alone in the office. Adrian pulled her into his arms, and they stood like that for a long moment, just breathing together. Thank you, he said against her hair, for trusting me enough to do this. Thank you for not making it a production. Ava looked up at him. Though I suspect your mother is going to have opinions. My mother can have all the opinions she wants. This was about you and me and keeping you safe. Adrian's hand splayed across her back, warm and possessive. Everything else is just details. The next few weeks fell into a strange rhythm. Ava's body began to change in subtle ways, the slightest curve to her stomach, a new fullness to her breasts. Dr. Reeves pronounced everything progressing normally, and each week brought new ultrasound images that Adrian studied like they held the secrets of the universe. Victor remained a distant threat, his operations curtailed by Adrian's systematic dismantling of his resources. There were no more surprise visits to the garden, no more manipulation attempts. Just an uneasy peace that both sides seemed willing to maintain for now. Ava started to explore the estate more freely, discovering hidden corners and beautiful spaces she hadn't noticed before. The library became her favorite refuge, and she spent hours there reading everything from business texts to parenting books to novels that had nothing to do with her new reality. Maya finally came to visit, after weeks of Ava making excuses about why they couldn't meet in the city. Her sister's reaction to the estate was predictably shocked. This is where you've been living? Maya stood in the foyer, spinning in a slow circle. Ava, this is insane. Who is this guy? It's complicated. Ava led her sister to the sunroom, where Margaret had prepared tea and pastries. But I need you to trust me. I'm safe here. The baby is safe here. The baby. Maya's eyes went wide. You're really pregnant. I thought maybe you were joking in that text. Not joking. Ava pulled up her shirt slightly, showing the small bump. 14 weeks now. Maya reached out tentatively, her hand hovering over Ava's stomach. Can I? Of course. Her sister's touch was gentle, reverent. I'm going to be an aunt. Wow, that's huge. Maya's eyes filled with tears. And you're married? To someone I've never met? I know. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Everything happened so fast, and there were complications. What kind of complications require you to disappear and marry a stranger? Ava hesitated, weighing how much truth to share. The kind that involve dangerous people and situations I don't fully understand yet. But Adrian, my husband, he's keeping us safe, the baby and me. Adrian, Maya's expression was skeptical. And I'm supposed to just trust that some guy I've never met has your best interests at heart? No, you're supposed to trust me. Ava took her sister's hand. I know this looks crazy from the outside, but I'm making the best choices I can with the information I have. And I need you to support me, even if you don't understand. Maya was quiet for a long moment, studying Ava's face. You seem different. More settled, maybe. Less like you're constantly scrambling just to survive. I feel different. Ava realized it was true as she said it. For the first time in years, I'm not worried about making rent or juggling work schedules or stretching every dollar. I can just breathe. And that's worth marrying someone you barely know? I'm getting to know him. Ava's hand moved to her ring, twisting it. And he's getting to know me. It's not conventional, but it's working. The sunroom door opened and Adrian stepped in. He'd clearly been giving them privacy but had timed his entrance perfectly. He was dressed more casually than usual, jeans and a dark sweater that made him look younger, less intimidating. You must be Maya. He extended his hand. I'm Adrian. It's good to finally meet you. Maya shook his hand warily. So you're the one who swept my sister off to a mansion and married her in secret. That's an oversimplification, but yes. Adrian's smile was slight. I imagine you have questions. A few hundred. Maya's eyes narrowed, starting with what your intentions are toward my sister. To protect her and our child with everything I have. To build a life together that's stable and safe. And to earn her trust every single day, because I know I don't deserve it yet. Adrian's gaze shifted to Ava, soft in a way Maya couldn't miss. Your sister is remarkable. I'm lucky she chose to stay. I haven't heard her mention being given much choice. That's fair. Adrian didn't flinch from the accusation. The circumstances of how we ended up here weren't ideal, but Ava makes her own choices now, including whether to keep me in her life or send me away. Maya looked between them, and Ava could see her sister processing, evaluating. Finally, she sighed. Okay, I don't understand any of this, and I'm pretty sure you're both insane, but if Ava says she's happy, I'm going to choose to believe her. She pointed at Adrian. But if you hurt her, I will find a way to make you regret it. Sister's prerogative. Understood. Adrian's expression was solemn and appreciated. Ava should have people in her life who protect her, even from me if necessary. The visit ended better than it had started, with Maya promising to come back soon and Adrian arranging for a car service to take her home safely. As they watched her leave from the front steps, Ava leaned into Adrian's side. Thank you for that, she said, for letting her grill you. She had every right. Adrian's arm came around her waist. I took you away from everything familiar. The least I can do is let your family verify you're okay. She likes you, even if she won't admit it yet. I don't need her to like me. I just need her to know you're safe. Adrian pressed a kiss to her temple. Speaking of which, there's something I need to tell you. Ava tensed. That sounds ominous. Not ominous, just significant. Adrian guided her back inside to his office. He pulled up something on his computer, then turned the screen toward her. Victor reached out through intermediaries. He wants to negotiate. Negotiate what? A truce. Territory agreements that give us both space to operate without conflict. Adrian's expression was carefully neutral. It's a good offer. Better than I expected. But it also means admitting I can't eliminate him entirely, that we're going to have to coexist. Adrian's jaw tightened. I want your opinion before I respond. Ava stared at the screen, at the formal language of the proposal. What do you want to do? Eliminate the threat entirely. Make sure he can never come after you or the baby again. Adrian's voice was hard. But that would mean open war, casualties on both sides, collateral damage I can't fully control. And if you accept the truce, then we live with an uneasy peace. Victor stays in his territory, I stay in mine, and we both agree not to target each other's people. It's not perfect, but it's stable. Ava thought about Danny's death, about Isabella Moretti, about all the violence that had already touched their lives. I vote for peace, however imperfect. Even though it means Victor walks away unpunished? Even though she turned away from the screen to face Adrian. Because I want our child to grow up in a world where you're here, not off fighting wars. And because I think you want the same thing, even if your pride makes it hard to admit. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. You're right. I do want that. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. I'll accept the truce, on the condition that he never comes near you or the baby again. Make it ironclad. I will. Adrian's hands framed her face. I promise. The truce was formalized 2 weeks later through lawyers and intermediaries. Ava never saw Victor again, but she felt the weight of his absence. The security detail reduced, the tension in Adrian's shoulders easing, the sense that maybe they could breathe without looking over their shoulders constantly. As winter gave way to early spring, Ava's pregnancy became impossible to hide. Her body rounded beautifully, and Adrian seemed fascinated by every change. He would spend hours with his hand on her stomach, feeling the baby move, talking to them in soft Italian that Ava didn't understand but found beautiful anyway. What are you saying? She asked one night as they lay in bed, his palm warm against her belly. I'm telling them about their grandfather, about the man who built this empire and the legacy they're inheriting. Adrian's voice was soft in the darkness. And I'm making promises about the father I'm going to be. The kind who's present, who protects them, who loves them unconditionally. You're going to be an amazing father. Ava covered his hand with hers. Even if you are terrifying sometimes. Only to people who deserve it. Adrian shifted so he could kiss her stomach. Never to you. Never to them. Adrian? Ava's voice was hesitant. I think I'm ready. Ready for what? For the real wedding. The one that means something. She turned to face him in the dim light. I want to stand in front of our family and choose you. Not because I'm scared or because it's practical, but because I want to. Adrian's expression transformed into something so tender it made her chest ache. Are you sure? I'm sure. And she was. Somewhere between the legal ceremony and this moment, fear had transformed into something else. Something that felt dangerously close to love. I want our baby to be born into a family that chose each other, completely and without reservations. Then we'll have a wedding. Adrian pulled her close, and Ava could feel his heart racing against her chest. Whatever you want, whenever you're ready. Soon, Ava kissed him softly, before I'm too pregnant to fit into a dress. They planned the wedding for early May, when Ava would be 6 months pregnant and the gardens would be in full bloom. It was small, just Maya and Elena, Margaret, and a few of Adrian's most trusted people. No flash, no spectacle, just a simple ceremony under an arbor covered in white roses. Ava wore a dress that Maya helped her pick out, something flowing and elegant that accommodated her growing belly without hiding it. Her hair was down, the way Adrian liked it, and she carried a bouquet of peonies that matched the ones scattered through the garden. Elena cried through the entire ceremony, which Ava hadn't expected. The formidable matriarch who'd intimidated her so thoroughly that first day stood with tears streaming down her face as Adrian and Ava exchanged vows they'd written themselves. I promise to choose you every day, Ava said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. To build a life with you that's honest and real, to be your partner in all things, the light and the dark, and to love this child we made together with everything I have. Adrian's vows were simpler but no less powerful. I promise to protect you, to honor you, to give you the freedom to choose while making sure you always have a safe place to return to. I promise to be the father our child deserves and the husband you need. And I promise that whatever comes, we face it together. When the officiant pronounced them married, truly married this time, Adrian kissed her with a tenderness that made the small gathering sigh. And Ava kissed him back, tasting salt from tears she hadn't realized she was crying. I love you, she whispered against his lips, the first time she'd said the words. Adrian's arms tightened around her. I love you too, more than I knew I could love anyone. The reception was held in the sunroom, with food Margaret had been preparing for days and music played by a string quartet. Maya danced with one of Adrian's security guards, laughing freely for the first time since arriving. Elena cornered Ava after dinner, her eyes still red from crying. Welcome to the family, she said, pulling Ava into an embrace that smelled of expensive perfume and something warmer, acceptance, maybe. truly and completely this time. Thank you, Ava returned the embrace. For everything, even the parts that were terrifying. Especially those parts. Elena pulled back, holding Ava at arm's length. They made you stronger, and Adrian needs someone strong beside him. As evening fell, Adrian pulled Ava away from the celebration, leading her to a part of the estate she hadn't seen before, a small cottage nestled at the edge of the property, surrounded by flowering trees. "What is this?" she asked as he unlocked the door. "Yours, ours." Adrian guided her inside to a space that was smaller than the mansion, but no less beautiful. "I had it renovated as a wedding gift. Somewhere we can escape when the main house feels too big or too formal. Somewhere that's just for us and the baby." The cottage was perfect, airy and warm, with a nursery already prepared in soft yellows and creams. There was a rocking chair by the window, and a crib that looked handmade, and Ava felt tears welling up again. "You did this for us? I wanted you to have a place that felt like home, not just a room in my house." Adrian's arms came around her from behind, his hands settling on her belly. "This is ours, Ava, our family's space." She turned in his arms, going up on her toes to kiss him. "It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm far from perfect." But he was smiling. "But I'm yours." "Yes." Ava pressed her forehead to his. "You are." They made love that night in the cottage, slow and sweet, Adrian worshiping her changing body with hands and mouth until she was trembling and breathless. And afterward, lying tangled together in sheets that smelled new, Ava felt a peace she'd never experienced before. "What are you thinking?" Adrian asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her hip. "That I'm happy." Simple words, but they carried weight. That despite everything, the fear and the chaos and the impossible circumstances, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. With me. With you. She kissed his chest, building something real, something lasting. The baby kicked then, strong enough that Adrian felt it against his stomach. His expression transformed into wonder, the same look he got every time he felt their child move. "They're going to be here soon," he said softly. "Our daughter." They'd found out the sex at the last ultrasound. A girl who was healthy and active and already taking after her father in stubbornness, if the doctor's amused comments were anything to go by. 3 more months. Ava's hand covered his over her belly. "Are you ready?" Terrified, Adrian's honesty made her smile. "But ready as I'll ever be." "Me too." They fell asleep like that, hands intertwined over their daughter, hearts beating in sync. The remaining months of pregnancy passed in a blur of preparation. The nursery in the main house was completed, a complement to the one in the cottage, giving them options. Ava attended birthing classes with Adrian, who took notes with the same intensity he brought to business meetings and asked so many questions the instructor started calling on him first. Maya visited weekly, her initial skepticism about Adrian fading as she saw how he treated Ava, with reverence and respect and a tenderness that was impossible to fake. Elena became a frequent presence as well, advising on everything from baby equipment to the business transition Adrian was orchestrating to give himself more time with his family. The truce with Victor held, becoming something more stable as months passed without incident. Adrian's empire continued to shift toward legitimate operations, and while Ava knew the transformation would take years, she could see the commitment in every decision he made. "I want our daughter to be proud of what I do," he told her one night, as they reviewed plans for a new community center his foundation was funding. "Not ashamed or afraid." "She will be." Ava pressed a kiss to his jaw. "You're making sure of it." Labor came 3 weeks early, in the middle of the night, and with an intensity that stole Ava's breath. Adrian remained calm, getting her to the car and to the private hospital Dr. Reeves had arranged with an efficiency that spoke to careful planning. "You've got this," he said, holding her hand through contractions that felt like they were tearing her apart. "You're so strong, Ava, so brave." "I'm not," she gasped as another contraction hit. "I can't." "You can. You are." Adrian's voice was steady, an anchor in the chaos. "Just breathe. I'm right here." 16 hours later, as dawn broke over the city, their daughter came into the world screaming her displeasure at the cold air and bright lights. Dr. Reeves placed her on Ava's chest, and the world narrowed to the tiny, perfect face scrunched up in protest. "She's here," Ava whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Our baby is here." Adrian was crying too, though he tried to hide it, his hand gentle on their daughter's dark head. "She's perfect, just like her mother." They named her Isabella, after the woman who'd come before, the child who'd never had a chance. It felt right, honoring the past while building toward the future. "Hello, Isabella," Ava whispered, as their daughter quieted against her skin. "Welcome to the world, sweet girl. We've been waiting for you." The first weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and endless diaper changes, and the steep learning curve of parenthood. But Adrian was there for all of it, changing diapers with the same precision he brought to business deals and walking the floors at 3 a.m. with Isabella when she refused to settle. "You're surprisingly good at this," Ava said one night, watching him rock their daughter with practiced ease. "I have good motivation." Adrian glanced at her, his expression soft in the nursery light. "I want to be the father I never had. Present, engaged, part of every moment." "You are." Ava moved to stand beside him, looking down at Isabella's sleeping face. "You're exactly the father she needs." As Isabella grew from newborn to infant, the cottage became their sanctuary. Most nights they stayed there rather than the main house, creating a small, contained world where they could just be a family. Adrian worked from the cottage office when he could, taking calls with Isabella asleep in a carrier against his chest and making decisions about million-dollar deals while covered in spit-up. "This is not how I imagined my life turning out," Ava said one afternoon, watching Adrian attempt to assemble a complicated toy while Isabella gummed her fist and watched with solemn eyes. "Better or worse?" Adrian looked up from the instruction manual he was scowling at. "Different." Ava settled beside him, Isabella in her lap. "But better. Definitely better." 6 months after Isabella's birth, Adrian made an announcement that surprised everyone. He was stepping back from day-to-day operations, transitioning most of his responsibilities to trusted lieutenants while he focused on the legitimate businesses and his family. "Are you sure about this?" Ava asked when he told her. "This empire is everything you've built." "No." Adrian took Isabella from her arms, settling their daughter against his shoulder. "This is everything I've built. You and her. Everything else is just business." The transition wasn't seamless. There were challenges and pushback from people who'd expected Adrian to maintain his iron grip forever. But he navigated it with the same strategic brilliance he brought to everything, ensuring the power structure remained stable while creating space for himself to breathe. A year after their wedding, they threw a party. Not for business or obligation, but just because they wanted to celebrate. Maya came, bringing a boyfriend she'd been seeing for months. Elena arrived with gifts for Isabella that were excessive and perfect in equal measure. Even some of Adrian's business associates showed up, people who'd never expected to see him settled and domestic. "Look at you," one of them said, watching Adrian chase after Isabella as she toddled through the garden. "Never thought I'd see the day." "Neither did I." But Adrian was smiling, his entire being focused on their daughter's delighted squeals. As the sun set over the estate, Ava found herself on the balcony of her old suite, now converted to a guest room, looking out over the grounds where her life had changed so completely. Adrian found her there, sliding his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About that night. When you showed up at my apartment and everything changed." Ava covered his hands with hers. "I was so scared, so sure that getting in that helicopter was the worst decision I'd ever make. And now? Now I know it was the best decision I ever made." She turned in his arms, looping her hands behind his neck. "Because it brought me here. To you. To Isabella. To this life we've built together." "One day at a time," Adrian murmured, echoing the promise they'd made to each other. "One day at a time," Ava agreed. "And every day I choose this. I choose you. And I choose you." Adrian kissed her softly, sweetly, a promise of all the tomorrows they'd build together. From inside the house, they could hear Isabella's babbling and Maya's laughter, Elena's voice offering unsolicited but well-meaning advice. The sounds of family, of home, of a life that had started with a mistake and transformed into something beautiful. Ava had walked into Adrian's world expecting a cage. Instead, she'd found freedom, the freedom to be herself, to build something meaningful, to love without reservation. The gilded bars had dissolved, leaving only the choice to stay, and every single day she chose to stay. Not because she had to, not because she was trapped or scared or had no other options, but because this impossible man with his dangerous world and tender heart had become her home. And the baby they'd made together, now growing into a toddler with her father's dark eyes and her mother's stubborn spirit, was proof that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. As the party continued below and stars began to appear overhead, Adrian and Ava stood together on the balcony, holding each other in the gathering dark. They'd survived bullets and betrayals, fought their way through fear and doubt, and emerged on the other side stronger for it. "I love you," Ava said, the words coming easily now, as natural as breathing. "I love you too." Adrian pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Always." And in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms with their daughter's laughter echoing through the house and their future stretching out bright and full of possibility, Ava knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. Home. With him. Building their tomorrow, one day at a time.